This is episode 13 of the Great One Piece Readthrough, covering the Punk Hazard arc, volume 66 through 70. My name is Zach.
And my name is Ed.
On today's show, we have the translator for One Piece and Weekly Shonen Jump joining us once again. We have Stephen Paul. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
How's it going with you?
Everything's good.
Good. We also have the creator of the Eisner Award-nominated series Merman. We have Joey Weiser with us again. Hey, Joey.
Hey. I'm looking forward to talking about this arc.
Yeah, this is a fun one. It is. And you both have been on before, but we have two people who haven't been on a little bit later on in the show. We're going to be talking with Amy Marr and Marleen from Viz. And they're going to be talking about their favorite stuff in Punk Hazard and their thoughts on the arc. So excited to do that with them. But we have a pretty big arc to get through today. We could just jump right into this, I think, right? Unless there's anything. Well, I want to mention one thing at the top of the show, and that's that after this arc comes what I'm going to still call the current arc in what we're recording right now. So we're going to be covering things a little bit differently and a little bit later. So I'm going to be away for a little while, so just as scheduling, if you're not interested in this, you could skip ahead. But the Dressrosa episode will be coming out on September 17th instead of next week, August 27th. So look forward to it then. We're going to do it probably a little more freestyle-like, so it's not an 8-hour recap of Dressrosa, which is totally possible. Also, because we've been doing it for...
We've already done a 2-year recap of Dressrosa.
3 years almost at this point. So I think we'll probably do something a little loose, and I am hoping that by the time I get back, the arc's over. But I might be eating my own words.
Zach, I wanted to ask you in particular, because it's been you and me who've read every single thing for this read-through.
Yes.
Do you regret it at all?
No, I think this has been a really eye-opening experience. I mean, it's
certainly been an experience. It's been a lot of fun, but it's kind of intense.
No, it is intense. I actually finished up through volume 75, so you could say, oh, you didn't do the full thing, but I actually finished the full thing. I'm a couple chapters off from the end of 75 at the moment. It was intense. I think recording these was actually more intense than the reading, just because I did not expect these to be 2 to 5 hours long. And lo and behold, they were.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot, but the thing is, it's also, I think I'm now I feel more qualified to do a podcast about One Piece, having read through it like this.
Yeah, it's a good thing to have 6 years into the show.
I should have probably done it before I started the show once, because this is the first time I've read through the whole manga.
Well, regardless of your level of engagement with the work, you've always been a huge fan of it. So you don't.
Yes, yeah.
You've been as a fan, you're qualified from day one.
Now I feel much more qualified, though. I think now I could actually refer to things and remember them happening. I think it's something all One Piece fans should do. Maybe not at this speed, but I think it's something you should all do. And once we're done with it, this is basically our last episode of the traditional read-through, please keep going with it. You know, if you're not caught up with us yet, that's fine. Steve, I think, is still at Alabasta right now.
This podcast will always be there.
Yeah, it'll always be there. Just you could always hashtag OPReadthrough. We'll retweet your stuff, your thoughts on things. If you find stuff we missed and we didn't talk about, which is probably a lot, please let us know. But with that, I think we could get into Punk Hazard, which starts in volume 66 with chapter 655, which, as you could guess, is called Punk Hazard. So this is an arc I remember when it started, we were kind of awe-inspired. Like we just came from Fishman Island, which we were very sour about at the time. And
what's the opposite of Stockholm Syndrome?
I don't know.
So excited to be freed from Fishman Island?
I think that's just called freedom. And it was just so unknown. I remember just every aspect of this was like, what the hell is going to happen next? And we start on the fiery seas, coming straight out of Fishman Island, and we hear a transponder call, which is intercepted by two people we're very happy to see again, and that's Smoker and Toshigi, and G5.
Luffy's concerned that the transponder snail has a tummy ache. He's like, oh, what's the matter, buddy?
Is this the first time we've seen an emergency? I think it is.
Yeah. because Robin actually talks about how the SOS, that's a classic sort of a scam thing. Yeah, it's a trap.
Though, as far as we could tell, this never was a trap, actually.
No.
Also, really interesting, we get to see, what is it, Rygon Island? Raijin. I am terrible. And I'm looking at the damn page, which is where Arouge was prior to the time skip.
And which is where Luffy was supposed to have gone.
Right.
But he got caught up in the White Strum, and they ended up near Punk Hazard.
Yeah, that was from an SBS question, right?
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting.
That's how I appear more intelligent than I actually am.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just ruined this whole
Another little SBS thing, just so I don't mention it later. Another wrestling reference, as we've been noting it lately on the podcast, lots of them.
Ed has been noting.
But the two, Vice Admiral Andre and the pirate Condre.
Yeah, I thought Andre was Andre the Giant, right?
No, yeah, it's obvious. No, but it's based on him with his gigantic hair that he had in the early 80s when he was wrestling a lot in Japan, a lot against the guy we talked about last time, Stan Hansen. So,
and the name Andre Condre came from a Japanese folk singer, which just sort of popped into his head when he gave that answer about the twins. Because that's another SBS for a little later on.
Right, I remember that.
The appearances looks a lot
like
Andre
definitely.
the Giant. Yeah.
I think I was telling Greg this, but the SBSs, when you read them all the way through, the penis jokes are a little less annoying, I think. Because
because when there's a new volume out, everyone's always like, what's the big scoop? What's the big scoop? Oh, he's got a diamond penis. That's not so amazing, but there's a lot of good stuff mixed in there too.
Yeah, I think Steve and we always go through the new volumes together when they come out. I'm sure by this point we were already doing that. And I remember, I just could, I memorized your attitude toward those. It's like, and another penis question, and we turn the page, and another penis and fart question, and yeah, it's just, but it's a little better marathon. Anyway, we're getting off topic. I apologize for that. So, the crew takes the Mini Mary and ends up on Punk Hazard, the warm side of Punk Hazard. And what did you guys think of this whole scene here?
I really liked just the immediate, like the first thing you see, just after they go over the little, the little cloud path that Nami makes for them is just a giant, steel fence with like danger and keep out. And because it really is a different, setting. It's very much it's a laboratory. It's a facility. It's not a place with culture or inhabitants. It's just
it's got a world government and a Navy symbol on it, which kind of. And before that, we also get the a little explanation about samurai, because the guy was talking about samurai on the phone, and he said that the Wano, it's a closed society. They're the warriors from Wano. They're the samurai, and they aren't even affiliated with the world government. So it's a whole other thing.
Well, what a huge tease there, because you kind of think, oh, we're going to go to Wano now.
Eventually.
Not even close.
Hopefully.
I also want to note the One Piece Connection article that I wrote talks a little bit about, and this was through some of the help with Brian here in particular, potentially, the Uranus and the giants and using that. And it comes back to that a little later with Vegapunk and kind of why are they making giants? And it's kind of vague. They just kind of say they're making an army of giants. Government wants an army of giants, but I think that why is still very open-ended, and it's kind of something that's left hanging. That and the dragons, which we'll talk a lot more about. And why don't we talk about it right now?
Well, I did want to say about our first impressions. I think a thing that's really cool is that Oda had been really hyping up the new world, and Fishman Island didn't really... Fishman Island's sort of in between, doesn't really count as the new world. And so when they finally surface, like, it's so dangerous that there's, like, lightning everywhere and that the sea is actually on fire. And then even the island that they don't go to is, like, being constantly bombarded with lightning. And then the one that they do go to is, like, obviously very dangerous, like, lots of fire. And it really, like, gives you that feeling like, okay, this is the new world and it's not messing around.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, after all is said and done in Punk Hazard, that kind of goes away a little bit. And I kind of wish we saw a little bit more of this craziness, and I'm sure we will. I think we're starting to get hints of that. Yeah. But, yeah, anyway, Ed, go ahead.
Just wanted to know, G5 was lighting pirates on fire.
I mean,
in their one scene.
As they do.
We also see Zoro eating his metallic lunch.
Oh, yeah. Glad you mentioned that. Which was mentioned in Fishman Island.
Which was like 2 chapters ago, honestly, isn't it?
Yeah. It was not that far before. Okay, so the dragon.
The dragon, man.
The dragon with a farting voice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. and right before that, we see this gigantic skull. Is that a skull of another dragon? Maybe?
They said it's something bigger than a giant. I think a dragon.
It looks too humanoid to be the dragon.
Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole dragon scene? Steven, do you want
to? The dragon scene, man, it was so brief. Like the whole the arc of the giant dragon is so brief. Basically, he ran into the wrong guys, and he does not last very long. He's not long for this world when he runs across Luffy and Zoro.
Although we do get the explanation that the bigger ones are actually the older, stupider models. Later on, much later on.
Yes, that is true. But yeah, I think I remember being very interested because they do say, it's like, it must be a figment of your imagination because those are legendary beasts, and so it becomes pretty apparent right off the bat that this is something Vegapunk related, and the name Punk Hazard I think kind of put everybody into that mindset right off the bat, and so that made it interesting. But at this point, it was just kind of like, you still have such a small slice of what we know about Punk Hazard as a whole at this point that everything is just kind of baffling. It's that stage in the One Piece arcs where everything is mysterious and enigmatic, and you just have to kind of ride it out and find out how these things fit together.
Joey,
not to mention that we find out later on, and this is probably the best time to mention it since it's sort of tossed off later on when they're talking about...
Yeah, we could just talk about all the dragons even.
Well, no, but they mentioned that dragon was a favorite of the Celestial Dragons, and they'd given it a nickname, but they never say what the nickname was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's got to have consequences later on.
I know, right?
Yeah. The thing that's kind of amazing about the dragon is that, we've been reading 60 some volumes into One Piece, and you definitely at this point get the feeling that anything's possible, but you do have to sort of rely on Oda to tell you, a dragon is not a normal thing for them to see and not a thing that would exist in this world. And so, he does. Everyone's, shocked. And then it's really kind of amazing how then you feel that same shock, even though you've seen all sorts of crazy things in the world of One Piece. But he really makes it feel like, wow, a dragon. I never thought that I'd see a dragon.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd see a dragon after the Peace arc again. And then here it is.
Prior to this, the only thing Oda had written with a dragon in it was the Wanted story, right?
Story. Yeah, and
Monsters was the name of the story. I think.
Do you want to reference another SBS thing? It sounds like you're itching.
I'm honestly not sure which one you're referring to.
Okay, I think someone asked, did you have when you killed the dragon here? Was it supposed to be?
Oh yeah, the style is the similar attack. Yeah.
Yeah, but he said, I don't remember. I just did it again. Compare what I looked like at 19 and 38, killing a dragon here. I love this design. The teeth, I think, especially. I want to mention it because we're not going to talk about it again here. Meanwhile, the crew on the ship, those that remained and did not draw the short straw, except for a somewhat dead Brook, are taken to the cold side of Punk Hazard. And then we also get the scene with Luffy versus the legs.
I love the logic of the henchman not taking Brook because obviously you wouldn't.
No,
I feel like in other stories they would have just taken him with, and so everyone can have the adventure together.
Joey, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying that happened in Fishman Island as well. That they weren't not going to take Brook. I like that as an ongoing gag.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to wrap us up for 66, unless there's any final thoughts on that volume. Okay. Volume 67, I want to talk about this cover. Joey, do you want to start us off on your thoughts on it?
I like this cover. I could see someone saying that it's kind of jumbled, but I think it has some strong focus points with Luffy and with Kinemon's head. The one thing that kind of weirds me out is that block with
Caesar
in it is really kind of strange, and I don't think really necessary. But I like the set of the sort of switched straw hats at the bottom, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I love the expression on Luffy's face. Like, oh yes, these people have been switched.
That's his. Oh, this is a mystery phenomenon face.
I don't think you'd use the word phenomenon.
Well, no, it's whatever. It's a mystery. It's a mystery. Yeah. No, I like that Oda. That he did manage to fit in the character switcheroo in to immortalize it on one of these covers, because it's a great bit of fun that he had, and one of the highlights of the arc, I think, for me.
Yeah. Ed?
I also love Kinemon's face, and also like the dynamic action of you kind of feel like he's flying out of the out of the panel there, off to the side, like he's just sort of flying through as a flying head, making this ridiculous face. I love Kinemon's facial expressions in general. He's one of the more expressive characters. He's almost like a kabuki actor. Yeah.
I really do love this cover. I might be a little more into it than I guess everyone else here, who seems good but not amazing. And I think it is mostly due to the Kinemon head and the switched bodies. It's just and also it just kind of has that different feel because of that punk hazard warning kind of look in the background. I really like that as well. I'm a big fan of it. Anyway, I guess we could get into volume 67 here. And it starts out with an introduction to Luffy's legs, which, Ed, what are they called again?
Its name's Ashimaru.
Was there a reason for that? I forgot the...
Ashi means legs.
Ashi means legs, and Maro is like it's kind of like an old-fashioned Japanese name ending thing, because obviously the legs are as samurai legs, they are speaking in a very old-fashioned way, and so I think that's kind of the thing is it's legs and he speaks old-fashioned, so that's kind of the name that Luffy came up with.
He's speaking out of his butt. And not the way politicians do, but literally, which politicians also may do. No,
random bird person too.
Yeah, there's a bird person. It's been a difficult meeting season for her, but
Luffy has never been more excited than when he is a centaur. I love this gag that it lasts a chapter or two. Like there's a little. He goes on some adventures as a centaur here, which I think are really funny. I always loved his original thing. Like, what is this called? It's a centaur? I'm a centaur! And he's like super excited about it. And then the legs are like body slamming him and suplexing him and stuff. And it's just really funny.
I'm actually really now excited to hear this in the dub. Just because I want to hear that take, Colleen's take on that. In like 10 years, when we get to this. Actually, we're getting pretty close to this now.
Are you playing with my face? It's a great line.
You're fast forwarding us at. Okay.
I don't know.
No, so Frankie and crew wake up in, what is this, Deck 102? Check 102. It's obscured. And they wake up to discover they have been captured, not Brook though, and that there is a weird puzzle on the ground, which probably comprises one of my favorite scenes as well.
Yeah, I love it. And having just seen Resurrection F, I couldn't help but think of Frieza's face being all cut up. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that yet. Yeah. But there's a kind of focus on his face and his eyeballs and stuff being cut up at the beginning of the movie, and made me think of that.
I love them trying to figure out how to put it back together too, very unsuccessfully.
It's like a puzzle, like you said. It's like one of those games where there's lots of different pieces.
Well, the best part is they're carrying him around incorrectly for a lot of the time, with his neck on his head and his head on his, what was it, the Dr. Nick line too?
Mr. McGregor with a leg for an arm and an arm for a leg.
Kind of like that.
His goatee makes a really good balding head shape.
It does.
Yeah.
It's all creepy. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and he gets into this sort of back and forth with Nami, like how rude in body she is, and I can see you are traumatized by having your clothes ripped from your body. Like, what are you talking about? I like this.
This is fashion.
Yeah.
But he's a chauvinistic pervert, and I like how Nami calls him out for that. She says those things.
It's a trap.
So Frankie uses his radical beam to get out, and I like how Frankie's Vegapunk technology here kind of is mentioned a lot, but nothing's really done about it, besides just piquing Caesar's curiosity later on.
Well, he's going to strip his body for parts is what he was going to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's piquing. That's how Caesar's curiosity is piqued. Yeah. And then they run into the children in the biscuits room. If you guys want to talk a little bit about the biscuits room.
I also wanted to mention about Kinemon.
Oh, go ahead.
We don't know his name yet, but that's, the samurai.
I think we could say his name's Kinemon.
Yeah.
I think people listening know his name is
Kinemon. When Sanji, kicks him into the wall, he does, he does the very... Bushido thing of denying that he's in pain or denying that he needs help, and that's a gag with him all over. He's refusing to ask for help, but when he obviously needs it because he's ahead.
Yeah, I feel like that gag works a lot better in marathons. I feel like I didn't notice or care about it when I initially read through it, but it's something I noticed a lot more.
Well, it makes it super obvious that the dragon is his son later on.
Yeah.
Because they do the exact same thing.
Right. I mean, yes. Anyway, thoughts on the biscuits room?
The biscuits room was definitely the first thing I thought of was Akira, the giant room in a facility for weird, freaky kids. In this case, instead of being little old people, they're giant little kids. But yeah, very, very reminiscent of that.
It also kind of reminded me of Castle of Cagliostro as well. It's just that whole thing of sort of a creepy vibe being set to a nursery.
I think that's very successfully done as well. And the story with the kids, I mean, if we're gonna get through it more, I think still really works. I think Ed, I can't remember when we were doing this originally, it was one of those story elements we thought was probably better done in this arc. I don't know.
Well, the way it interacts with Chopper in particular.
Chopper, Nami.
Tashigi.
And Tashigi, too.
Yeah. That really helped. Characters that may not get focus all the time. They were the spotlight characters of the arc.
I think Chopper and Nami definitely got a good amount because of that here. In kind of a different role than we see.
Yeah. And they beg to be saved, and they please save us, lady. And the only reason that Sanji goes along with it and everyone goes along with it is because Nami is convinced. And I like it. She wields the power a lot.
Yeah, no, that's true. And meanwhile, while that's going on, we have Luffy's centaur adventures. We have Monet's flying around being suspicious adventures. We have Brooks' adventures trying to make a snowman unsuccessfully. And Smoker and crew arrive on the island, as if you want to call it an island as well. And we kind of find out a little bit more, I think. Is that when we find out a little bit more about the history of the island there?
Well, you've also skipped over a little bit of Brook at the entrance to the island with, there's buildings around here. None of them are restaurants, though.
Yeah, no, I chuckled at that one.
So Luffy playing with the centaur.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. The centaur just sort of appears. He's mentioned as Luffy's new best friend.
So, what did you guys think? Kind of the whole split. Did you guys have theories originally as to why half the island was volcanic and half the island was frozen? I'm trying to remember.
No, in fact, I specifically remember us all being kind of amazed at the reveal that the reason that it's ice and fire is because this is the place where Akainu and Aokiji fought. Over being the next fleet admiral of the Marines, and it's a perfect setup. It's one of those oh, why didn't I think of this earlier things? But I think it's really cool, and it's a great kind of world building reason for the island, for the location being so crazy like that. It's not just the way the island is, but it's the result of a major event in the story.
And they also reveal it quite early in the arc, so it's not The speculation about that isn't like a major point.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I thought it was a really cool element of it, and I'm sure we could talk about in the Reverie segment a little bit, just about what this might represent in the One Piece world going forward. That powers could be devil fruit powers could be this powerful as to completely change the landscape. So after that, we get another scene with Brook. I'm sorry, first we get the scene with the banana boat and the alternate modes of travel being the devil fruit users riding on top of the non-devil fruit users.
To the land of shaved ice.
But by the time you get there, you're not going to want it. And we also get an introduction to Mysterious Silhouette's Brownbeard and crew. I'm sorry, I just spoiled it right there.
Brownbeard, what a worthless character.
No, I disagree. I think
no, up to this point, though.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed up in one scene being an idiot and getting beaten by Hawkins, or just about.
It's kind of like he's kind of like Macro in just in his level of, he's a stupid pirate basically. Like sometimes,
Yeah, but my opinion of him so severely changes through this arc, and I think Oda does a pretty damn good job with that, actually.
He's just a simple pirate, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You got it in over his head.
We also get a fight between Brook and Kinemon's torso. He's everywhere.
He's interrupting the snowman building. Brook is in a stage production of Frozen, I guess.
And we also get probably the biggest reveal here, and that is for a certain brand new warlord of the sea, Trafalgar Law. And I gotta, what were your thoughts when you first saw that, Joey? You wanna?
I was not that interested in Law to begin with. I mean, I definitely, when that showed up, it was like, okay, this is going to be important. So I was, but I wasn't like, oh yes, finally, Law,
Mm-hmm. I was a little surprised that they let him join the Warlords after what happened at the end of the war.
But.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's kind of like it. I think we've seen enough to know that the world government does not. For one thing, they don't seem to have a particularly good track record of picking pirates who are not going to screw them over in some way or another. They just kind of seem to go for whoever is the most powerful and the most, the ones that fit their criteria. And the consequences be damned.
You're right.
Yeah.
What about? I don't think we've talked about this. Just the designs. Post time skip for Law, Smoker, Tashigi. Is there anyone else we haven't seen that shows up here? I think those are the three. I mean, if you guys have any opinions.
And they're not very different, I think.
Smoker has a weird, shaved undercut thing.
And that giant scar.
It's Macklemore hair.
Yeah. I think Smokers I was not feeling
I agree
immediately.
Yeah.
He's got a sort of Terminator look, which is kind of like Frankie has a sort of Terminator look, and it feels like those sunglasses are being used time and time again. But I don't know, it's grown on me. Tashigi looks cool, but she doesn't look that different. He did sort of the same technique that he has, where it's like, now they have longer hair. Look how much they've grown
and bigger boobs.
Didn't she used to wear glasses?
She does.
She still wears glasses.
Oh,
she still wears them, but it's
not
only.
I've never seen though.
No.
She takes
They're
them
often on top of her head, like in her hair.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on I guess Law's entrance there? Probably not. I think
I just like how he tells Smoker to basically shut the fuck up and get the fuck out.
No, you're thinking of the Scanlation translation there. No, he's like, this is my vacation home. Get away. We also get a lot of Kung Fu Chopper, which I only want to mention because I love it. And we get the mysterious room, which I guess is explained, with all the prisoners being the frozen ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember thinking that these were going to be a bigger plot point in this arc, and it turned out they really weren't. They just kind of explained the nature of of Law's what is it? His promotion to warlord, I guess, is that these are the guys whose hearts he sent in. But that's about the extent, it seems like, of their explanation.
Oh, these, I know, I didn't even remember that part. And I just read through this, I should have remembered that part. It makes for a really cool visual. I love the visual when Chopper and Nami are in that cave just looking up in that 2-page spread. It's a very cool scene. It is.
Yeah. This was still at a time when I was still like peeking at scanlations and stuff before the official versions came out, and I definitely remember being super confused by this page. It just looked like a big gray blob. And then seeing the official one and being like, whoa, it's awesome. There's these like frozen bodies, and you can see so many details, like the ones underneath are really, I think that might be the creepiest part, is that they're standing on top of people too.
Is this when Alpha was starting? I'm trying to know this. I should probably get this up.
We started up just before Punk Hazard. It basically coincided with the start of Punk Hazard.
And when did Shonen Jump proper start? That was, I think
it was a year later.
Like a year later.
It's probably toward Dressrosa or anything.
Toward the end of this arc,
yeah. No, you're right though. I mean, also just reading through these translations from Steven make things so much simpler to get through. Because I mean, I've been reading through a lot that we originally read scanlated because Viz wasn't around doing this kind of stuff in the time. Right. I think they were up to Baroque Works when we started, and it's just. Things are so much simpler. I think, Ed, you probably remember we were trying, like, during Marineford and stuff, talking about all this. Yeah. Okay, let's get off that topic.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think it was hilarious at the time. What was Don Quixote's name?
Tangiato?
Tangiato
Doflamingo.
And Bisarome Bear.
Bisarome Bear, my favorite character. My favorite part here, though, going up to these scenes, is when Law's like, no one's here, and then all of the Straw Hats and kids bust out of there and do their little... You got Frankie in the tank.
Singing,
and then everyone, even Sanji doing the super dance, which made me very happy.
I'm just as shocked as you are. I had no idea they were back there.
And he's holding Kinemon's head out like a cake or something.
Oh yeah.
And Kung Fu Chopper's arms can't reach each other.
Yeah, and then the G5 guys are like a tanuki, a bikini in winter, giant kids, a robot, and a severed head. I must be dreaming.
And you know what? You probably are. And then things get really cool when Law shows off his power because, damn. Damn.
That's a really cool moment.
I think at this point we had kind of thought Law was the new Poochie, is what we, and I think at this 2-page spread is like, oh, he's pretty damn cool. I mean, I guess that's what Poochie is too, but he's cooler than your ordinary Poochie. If you guys
the Arbiter of Poochie isn't here.
No, I know. I'm sorry.
They're talking about Poochie.
Do you guys have thoughts on that whole scene though with him and Smoker, that whole fight?
I liked the usage of, again, similar to how finding out that this island is important for reasons relating to characters that we know already. It's really cool to get these familiar characters like Law and Smoker and Tashigi, and having them interact in this way around the Straw Hats. It's just one of the advantages of a super long-running series like One Piece, especially with the way that Oda likes to tie things back around and keep old characters relevant, is being able to see characters in new circumstances and have it feel really astonishing and amazing. Like, oh man, can you imagine this guy that we saw back in volume 12 is in this situation now, 60 volumes later almost, and that was really cool to me. It was just like, whoa, just all these old characters that are getting into some crazy stuff here.
And with Law, at this point, we were still trying to figure out exactly what his powers are. And I remember this as being sort of a whole new dimension to it's not just that he can split people up,
It's he controls everything in this space. And also splits people up.
Yeah, Smoker does a good job of explaining that, actually.
Yeah, I think Smoker does do a good job. And also understanding kind of how his power is dangerous to his crew. But his crew doesn't listen, but still. also simultaneously going on, we have the scenes where the crew tries to swim across the sea lake with somewhat disastrous consequences. And then I think these were our favorite panels at the time of the arc, and I still agree, of the give me your damn clothes stuff. And the frozen crew also. Yeah. If you guys want to just talk about that whole scene, if there's
we also get the great bit of Brooke coming in like unexpected and freezing their gun barrels and making them all backfire on them as they tried to fire on the crew in the lake.
Yeah. More time for Brooke to shine is great. Mm-hmm.
Brooke gets a lot of good time to shine in this arc, which I am happy about.
Well, more so early on, but like he's a great sort of comic relief throughout the rest of it.
I agree. Yeah. And then we get the scene, and we've talked a little bit about it in the cover, and that is Law switching everyone up. So for the first time in years, we get to use these terms. We get Sanji Nami, did Chopper? It was the person first, and then the...
Yeah, it's the person who's talking.
Person who's talking first, and then the person whose body it is. So it's Sanji Nami, Chopper, Sanji. Yeah, that was right, because Chopper, Sanji says no to drugs.
Right. Nami
Frankie, Frankie Chopper, and Tashigi Smoker and Smoker Tashigi, if that's not confusing.
Then later on, we also get Nami Sanji.
Yes, just to add on top of all that. What do you guys think of that whole plot device now, in retrospect?
It's like really interesting that such a tight-knit group that really like love each other and are important to each other also kind of rub up against each other so negatively too. They all hate being in each other's bodies for the most part. Sanji's doing okay, but like
I guess the question, would we all hate it if this happened to us?
Yeah,
probably
right.
Would, yeah. We're pretty tight.
This could be with a different author, it could be turned into sort of a body horror type thing.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's also ended up sort of seemed like not a MacGuffin, but sort of the one of the main obstacles of the arc is like this whole awkwardness of they're gonna have to convince Law to put them back somehow, because there's no other way to put them back.
It's kind of surprising, like when I think of Punk Hazard, this is one of the main things I think of, and it's actually kind of surprising how early on it's all resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun while it lasts. You get a lot of cool little gags out of it.
Yeah, well, like looking at the arc as a whole, it is a little confused. Like, when Law does this at first, like I think you kind of overlook like why he would have done something like this, because it's just the actual switcheroo itself is so bizarre and fascinating, and it's kind of novel seeing these very familiar characters acting in completely different ways. But I remember like rereading it and thinking like, why exactly does he do this? And I guess it's mostly just to kind of make them preoccupied with their own stuff, because he doesn't want them kind of mucking things up. And so by switching them around, he throws them into confusion and makes it harder for them to kind of do what they're trying to do.
It makes more sense with Smoker and Tashigi.
Yeah, because obviously they want to
thwart him.
Yeah, to thwart his plan here.
Obviously, Law hadn't decided to ask Luffy to join a pirate alliance just yet. So obviously that comes at some point, soon when he decides that. But
I think he at this point may have already been considering it. I think when he sees Luffy, he already knows what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. Kind of also funny is that Caesar, for some reason, just feels like being in a gaseous form until Oda decides it's the time. Now we get to see his face.
Yeah. And then he never goes into that weird ghost form again.
I think once he does after that, just to kind of be like, see, he does it.
Mm-hmm. Actually does it with half and half later on.
Right. I think when Luffy punches him or something at some point.
Did you notice that when Law really messes up the ship, he cuts Tashigi into two pieces, and he says that the weak don't get to choose how they die. That's a great little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, and
we could talk about that in the Reverie.
Yeah. There's some great scenes here, and he eventually takes out Smoker's heart and switches them, as we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But then Luffy runs into him, and when I was reading this initially, I remember being like, is he friend or foe? Kind of like that thing we got at Fishman Island. And it kind of turns out he's a friend. And I didn't realize, I was reading through this again, and I was reading through it, and I was like, it's not clear Law is like such a dependable good guy. We just kind of all assumed he would be. And he is.
He did save Luffy's life.
He does.
They repeatedly warn Luffy that he could double cross them. I think that's stated a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think back when this actually happened, when we did not know anything about Law aside from the Sabaudi and the Marineford scenes, I don't think we were assuming that he was going to be a friendly figure. I think I think it's easier to see him that way in retrospect, given that they do form this alliance and he becomes a major part of the story. But at the time, he was still like, no, we didn't really know if he was going to be an impediment or how it was going to all fit in.
I think the scene that does it is toward the end with the bread and the pizza.
Mm-hmm.
I think that at that point you're like, okay, he's staying. Before that, definitely, but I think that'll solidify as the fault face is usually the solidifying factor.
Yeah. There's a great little bit with Brook wondering how he feels cold because he's only bones, but the cold's just in his head.
That's later, I thought, too, right? Or no?
That's right there. It's chapter 662.
Okay. And then we get a whole lot of banter and explanation as to what we just explained, so we won't go through that again here.
And we get the introduction of Monet, the bird woman harpy.
Yeah. And we eventually here get the reveal of Caesar, though it happens in little bits and chunks, because then his face is blocked out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Smoker Tashigi kind of goes through what may be happening here. And I like that I know Virgo came out of left field when we got to that. And I remember we were shocked about that. But there's a lot of hints dropped in Smoker Tashigi and Tashigi Smoker's conversation here, going through that there must have been some sort of mole in the inside of G5. And
all those weird abductions.
Yeah, and there's a lot of I think there's a lot of very good foreshadowing that I don't think many of us picked up on. Or why would we? Because,
Or it was just it was foreshadowing that we knew meant something because it was very mysterious, but we had no idea. There was no framework within to suspect anything at the time. Except
that we knew that the government likes to cover things up when they're inconvenient, as we knew from Alabasta. But that's really all we knew.
Also, some important information. Everyone gets a cardboard hat indicating who they really are.
We find out that Kinemon has the ability to kind of create disguises, which in this case is nice warm fur coats for everyone to wear in the freezing area.
It's the Piccolo clothes beam.
I must admit, I was a little disappointed by the little cardboard hats, just because I was excited by the sort of challenge of Oda portraying all the characters sheerly through acting and some facial differences. And so when they finally got the hats, it did make things a lot easier, but it was a little kind of like, aw, you gave up a little bit.
No, but I can understand why the characters themselves would need it.
Yeah,
True.
The chopper. Which of these?
But I also find it funny that he could have done it the whole time, but he just likes breastbands.
Kinemon, you mean?
Yes.
Which of these transformation, or which of these, I don't know what to call them, switches did you enjoy the most?
Frankie and Chopper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because of Robin's reaction to it.
I didn't realize how much I kind of enjoyed Nami and Frankie and how miserable she is. She's so and kind of helpless. I feel bad for her in that respect with Sanji, because that's the last person you want with her body.
Yeah, like she's very much not like, she even tries to like threaten them as someone as Frankie at some point, like, oh, I'm gonna shoot you with my laser beam, pew pew pew. She just makes these little sound effects.
Right. That's great. That was a great gag. We also, in a more serious note, find out that Luffy and the Supernovas and Blackbeard, etc., are all called the worst generation. I think this is the first time we see that term, which is something that is very prevalent. through the rest of the series, as far as I know, through the rest of the series. I thought was a very interesting. They stick out over anyone that came before or after, having kind of been born in this awkward time between Whitebeard and Roger. I think that was the awkward time, whatever it is. Yeah. We also find out Brownbeard's whole backstory, which we don't really need to talk about, unless you want to talk about it. And we get the introduction to Master Caesar Clown, who I think one of my favorite parts of him is the anime. And if you want to talk about his voice a little bit.
Sure, it's Caesar Clown, voiced by Muse Nakao, who is the Japanese voice of Frieza, and also I think he also voices him from Powerpuff Girls in the Powerpuff Girls anime that they did.
That's a random factoid you have there.
You know, it's a similar.
He does a lot of great voices. Yeah.
No, he's great. I think
he made this anime arc for me because this anime arc I wasn't necessarily looking forward to it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Because the anime had been kind of weak at the time, I felt. And but yeah, just him overacting everything, which is great for Caesar, and it made it was something to look forward to in every single episode, and there isn't always that there with the anime.
He's one of my favorite voice actors for sure. It was great hearing him.
I always saw, as translating, the character and his particular kind of quirks. I always heard, like, from the very start, he was always the monarch from Venture Brothers to me, because he just has that classic, like, sort of screechy, kind of semi-histrionic, and very, very, like, he's very self-aggrandizing. He's all about, like, promoting this vision of himself as a genius,
and not that idiot Vegapunk.
No, exactly. Like, he clearly has an inferiority complex with Vegapunk, and that gets played out in just really it's very good dialogue. Like his monologues and his dramatic speeches are really fun to kind of sink your teeth into.
He has three or four page monologues at one point right at the end. Yeah.
I know Steve did the Monarch voice the entire time we were doing the Caesar stuff, so I'm glad that was appropriate.
That was our Christmas special that year.
Yeah, we did do a Christmas special for anyone interested in listening to it, which I really enjoyed putting together. But I hope Greg introduced Oda to the Venture Brothers like he did for Game of Thrones. Caesar Clown, you see? He's a really fun villain, and at the same time, probably one of the most evil ones. Just like if you put him in the real world, he'd probably be, one of the most evil. I mean, when you put him next to Crocodile was trying to take over, a country. That's pretty bad. But he kind of,
or like, especially compared to Hody Jones, who had he
didn't really do anything.
Almost like low expectations and low aspirations for himself. Yeah, as he's going to take over the island. Oh,
But Caesar experiments on children, which is one of the worst things you could do.
And his people to new and strange places.
He kills people randomly, and
right. His obsession with killing in the most efficient way possible. He's kind of like which was the Nazi doctor, like the one who was
Mengele.
in charge of Mengele. Yeah, he's basically that figure.
I think Oda based a lot of this on that kind of history.
There are several references to gas chambers.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
I think
if we get them all down there, it'll be a giant gas chamber. And Caesar's very excited.
It is his power, so it makes sense that's. But I think
you can't not associate it with that when you read that.
He's probably one of the he kind of fills me with anger in the way that Chopper Sanji is filled with anger in this. But at the same time, he is a very fun villain, which is weird to say. Because he's so evil, but
he's cartoonishly evil. Like, you almost can't take him seriously sometimes.
Sanji discovers that it had been the kids had been given a stimulant, which we're kind of hinting at here, which is kind of what keeps them under his control. And I think you talked about Chopper here a little bit, Ed. Just how it's kind of his arc in a way too, and you don't really ever see him get this angry. Especially since he's in Sanji's body, so it provides for some interesting facial expressions. But not as interesting as Frankie Chopper's, but...
It's interesting how Caesar refers to the incident 4 years ago when he killed the entire island off, pretty much. That wasn't a failure at all. He's just collecting information for his next experiment. That's why he sees human life the same way too.
And I think we should get into the most important part of the arc, and that's the Yeti Cool brothers. I want to definitely talk about the Yeti Cool brothers.
Characters so important. One of them has a reused name.
A character so important you never see their faces.
Well, a thing that I like about Punk Hazard is kind of what I was saying about the dragon earlier. Is we keep getting these sort of plays on fantasy creatures that are not quite what you'd think they are. So you get a centaur, you get a harpy, and here we get yetis, and they're not exactly the yeti that you'd think they are, and they're pretty lame, which is unfortunate, but kind of funny considering that they're a big monstrous beast.
And also surprisingly okay with gay rights.
True.
It's like,
yeah, that's right.
They play for this. He plays for the other team. That's cool.
Yeah,
forgot about that. No, I read that. I'm like, okay. The thing is, I really like their designs from what we do see. They're very ominous looking, but I think they're just super disappointing. And not that they're necessarily badly put together. They're just they don't amount to anything.
It's a classic Oda stall tactic. That's what they are. Is they're just something to kind of move some of the characters around and force them to do something else to advance while he advances the plot.
Body switch is kind of like that too, but the body switch is a lot more fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Oda's like really, really skilled at like making a really cool final panel that's like an appearance of a new character. And when they don't pay off, it sometimes stings a little too much, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do like the one gag that he does with them where Brownbeard is describing them, and he keeps it's like an entire page of him describing them, and he keeps going, the only thing we know is that they're called the Yeti Cool Brothers. The only thing we know is
it's like
that
a Rick and Morty
sketch.
sketch.
Are huge. Yeah. And finally by the end of the page, like Nami Frankie is like, okay, clearly you know everything about them.
Yeah, they hail from a snowy and
right. They're age 25, blood type 0.
We get this bit where they've already defeated like Team Zoro, which was that Zoro Sanji or Zoro
Sanji Nami. Zoro Nami Sanji. Oh, Sanji Nami, you're right.
Sanji Nami and
Brook.
And I thought it was funny that Nami had forced Zoro to go along just to make sure that they wouldn't do any perverted shit.
Yeah, necessary. And it did
she
work.
broke Brooke's will.
So it doesn't really amount to anything, but I want to get to one thing the Yeti Cool brothers are cool for, and that's getting killed. Mm-hmm. I think that is a really cool scene when you get the cool scene with Monster Frankie Chopper.
That's great. I love that so much.
And he just immediately goes to that. And Chopper gives this long explanation for how his things work and how he should use that as a last resort.
Zuber!
That's great. So any thoughts on, I guess, that fight between Luffy and Frankie and the whole group?
They weren't prepared for the power of the Strats.
The Yeti Cool brothers? No.
Yeah.
No. The thing is, the bigger fight for Luffy is with Chopper, with Frankie Chopper.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I could buy them as, like, fitting into kind of Caesar's arsenal of various kind of mercenary hench groups if as like some of his most deadly hires, but the fact that they quote unquote like they say, oh, they're dead, we killed them, and it just turns out they got them like passed out drunk from these guns. It's like, are you serious? Like that's supposed to be fatal. That's the part for me that really rings a little false about that, and kind of it cheapens it, because it's like, obviously Oda, he's not going to introduce an obstacle and not make it seem like a big deal if it's supposed to waylay the characters for a little while, but sometimes it just rings obviously false. And I think this is one of those times.
I agree. Mm-hmm. So I guess it ends with Law kicking some ass and then explaining that he wants to form an alliance and has a plan to take down one of the 4 emperors.
Right. I mean, there's a little bit. There's stuff with the kids that we haven't really explained yet, like the NHC-10. The fact that
we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, and also the fact that they weren't. This is we find out later it's a government program to induce gigantism for what reason we don't know, but. Right. Yeah, these kids get angry and then they get sedated. So.
Yeah. I do remember feeling a little weird that like we just came from a storyline with like enhancing drugs, evil drugs.
Yeah,
and then we immediately get another story. I was kind of like, oh, that's weird. And it just feels strange that they're one after another. I think I do in general. And it's something that I'm getting over, but I, in general, kind of bristle a little bit at too many sci-fi and science elements in One Piece, and it's definitely moving more and more in that direction. But like, so when we had 2 arcs back to back that had these sort of like steroids and then addictive stimulants, it seemed a little too samey and a little like it didn't quite match my ideas of the world.
Yeah, I think the only reason that they don't stick out further is because one of them, the Fishman Island energy steroids, it turns out, they're kind of rooted. He ties them into the Tamate Bako,
right, which is like, great
as a folklore thing. So they're almost like magic beans essentially. Whereas in this case, they're very clearly, kind of like a modern manufactured drug, which is kind of a different, at least source for them. Which
it's kind of
If they had been more similar in kind of origin, then it would have been like, okay, what's going on?
I mean, we were making historical comparisons to the Nazis. You also have eugenics and all that kind of stuff at play, kind of, or just playing with potential genes and drugging people.
And also, Caesar really revels in it. Like in that flashback when he's talking to Law, he's like, "Oh, the kids can't survive without their candies," and like Law's kind of like, "You're disgusting."
Yeah, I like it. Law says you remind me of someone, which I think for those who have read on understand what he's referring to. Let's get into volume 68. We'll talk a little bit more about the Alliance in a second, but first I want to talk about...
we also get the first bit of betraying Brownbeard by Caesar is at the end of this volume, and it just begins this sort of great redemptive character arc for Brownbeard being this sort of supporting...
He doesn't ever get redeemed. He doesn't ever get to redeem himself, but he does get beaten a lot.
He tries, though, and I like that about him.
Let's talk about the cover of Volume 68. Steven, do you want to start us off with this one as well?
I really like this one, just the color scheme in particular, but it also has a cool. I like some of the little effects, like the snow on top of the logo. I think
good job. Viz there too. It's on that one as well.
Wasn't the logo still the same in the Japanese?
Same color?
Yeah, I think it is.
They replaced the Japanese at the top with the subtitles.
Yeah, that is
or
true.
Super titles, but yeah.
I keep going. Sorry,
but I like the color scheme. I like all of the white and blue in it, and it does seem a little weird to have like portraits of Luffy, Law, and Smoker, and then have them also walking on their faces. It seems a little redundant. But no, I like it, and obviously Caesar front and center. This is his crowning achievement in this volume, I guess.
It reminds me a lot of the cover we had with the Hody eyes that I really liked, and I like this one a lot for the same reason, but also had the weird fourth wall thing of punching through Fukuboshi's chest.
Joey.
I like this cover a lot. It's probably my favorite of the Punk Hazard bunch. I always really love it whenever Oda gets more creative than just kind of sticking a bunch of characters on the cover. The one thing I will say in defense of the characters walking on top of their faces is a thing that I really like is that he chose not to have the full body characters in the same order as the faces. So like it mixes it up a little bit in a way that I find interesting. And it's just a really cool shot of those characters for sure.
Yeah, we don't usually see above like that. I don't know how to describe that angle. Joey, you probably are more qualified there. But,
Bird's eye.
Bird's eye, thank you. That is the term. I've heard of that term. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. It's cool. I think the first two covers of Punk Hazard are far superior to the second two, but that's just my opinion there.
I agree.
Yeah, it's also probably one of the more simple. I mean, considering there's a lot going on, but it's also one of the more minimalistic, I think probably is the word I'm looking for here, covers we have for One Piece in kind of the modern era of One Piece. Anyway, why don't we get started into this volume, and we get a whole explanation for the character switcheroo, as it's called. Which is necessary.
Yeah, no, it's you can tell based on both the presence of the kind of unprecedented presence of this little explanation page in the volume, and the fact that they did have the faces on the pictures, like on their foreheads, that this was clearly determined after the switcheroo happened, that okay, we need to like go out of our way to kind of make sure that everyone understands what's going on here, because it's potentially extremely confusing to people who are not like super locked into the story.
It's ostensibly a story mostly for children.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I think I've noticed in the sort of more recent arcs, as they get more and more complicated, they get really dense, but they also, I think, in order for the same reasons, have a lot of recap information thrown in every few chapters.
Right.
And I think that's a necessary thing for a weekly serialization that's aimed at young readers and stuff. But I definitely think that is one of the things that will maybe make bigger fans kind of like aggravated at Fishman Island, feeling like it's dragging and stuff. Is just because it's so dense, he has to keep kind of reminding you of all this information for those more casual readers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it hurts a little more on a marathon read when you have that, because it's like, I know, I just read it 5 minutes ago. But it is, I think it at the same time is necessary. When we did One Piece Podcast Goes to Japan, a lot of the complaints from more casual fans were like, I can't read the manga because I don't know what the hell's going on. And I have to watch the anime because it explains it to me, and it simplifies.
Because half the episode tells you what just happened.
What just happened, exactly. Because they're casual, they're not they're not us, and they're not a lot of the I'm going to say almost all of the listeners listening to us right now who are like super into it. So I understand it. I think when we do manga recaps weekly, it's kind of irritating, but I understand it. So let's talk about the Alliance a little. I think in the Reverie segment, we'll be talking a little more about who this alliance is meant to defeat. But what did you guys think when we find out that that's what's happening here?
It was very, again, like kind of playing off of what I was saying earlier about just the presence of Law and Smoker and all these old things. It felt like this is a huge story shift in the overall sense, because now Luffy is, they're not just working on their own, kind of doing their own thing, but he is kind of being sucked into a larger story where now Law's circumstances are going to, by necessity, become part of where the Straw Hats are going. And having this character who was not previously related to them in any way, having them join up is as part of like the worst generation, supernovas, that kind of thing is very fascinating. It was like, okay, wow, this is like this feels like New World, One Piece New World stuff going on.
It's how things are in the New World. Luffy can't just
a lot of
loner.
A lot of people call this like section of the story, the Alliance saga arc, whatever. I don't know, if necessarily I'd call it that. I think you're right, Steven. I think that's just going to be the way of the New World, is that you need to do that. I think
when they were explaining the Four Emperors before, like the Four Emperors, they have these territories in the New World guarded by subordinates. You'll never even see the captains.
Right, and well, I don't want to get into other things because I'm going to start spoiling. So I'm going
to... Right, that wasn't a spoiler. That was...
No, I know. Yeah. I'm afraid I will, so I'm going to move on. Unless there's any other thoughts. Joey?
Oh, I was just going to say at this point, I won't get into spoilers either, but at this point it does seem like a really good way to incorporate all these characters that we've seen and new ones without having to grow the cast, the permanent cast. And so, and also to give Luffy more and more allies without having to grow the cast.
I mean, until that interview Oda did with, I think it was like the China Times or something, where he said that there'll be more, crew members at some point down the line. Still hasn't happened. Don't worry, that's not a spoiler, as far as we know. But I was kind of hoping, and I think, Ed, you probably agree with me here, is that the way, it was just as Joey said, the way he'd grow his crew is more he would grow alliances. He'd have ships following him. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's a little of column A and a little of column B.
And lastly, it's just a really cool, I think, until the moment that you get introduced to all the supernovas on Shabandi, like you could kind of get a sense of every big character who is revealed is in some way it's a future adversary for Luffy. Like, oh, he's going to have to fight these 7 warlords. Oh, he's going to have to fight these, naval admirals at some point. But, when Oda kind of expanded the cast of his kind of contemporaries, it was not clear. It's like, clearly we're not going to have to go around and have an arc for each of these characters to have them be enemies. Yeah. No, they're going to kind of expand, and this is the first hint that we get of this as the concept of the alliance is like now they're going to start teaming up and doing things as groups and stuff like that, and that's I think where it gets really fascinating and just in terms of a world building.
I think it's I mean, as you know, that's one of my favorite aspects. Mm-hmm. And I think it's likely when we get toward the end of the series, we're going to see Luffy's influence grow exponentially from what it is, and this is just kind of the seeds of that. So it's really cool. It's really cool to look at because in 10 years you're going to be like, oh, that was just the very beginning of this.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of that alliance, everyone's shocked by it, but it also provides an opportunity to immediately switch everyone back except for Nami, which kind of makes the entire thing at the beginning moot. But okay, whatever. I see how it is.
Luffy finds this hilarious, though.
Oh yeah, especially Nami's suffering here.
Robin's also very happy that Chopper is there's no longer Frankie has inside of him.
Yeah.
And poor Chopper, as soon as he gets turned back, then he is tied to Trafalgar Law's hat, and
he's also immobile.
And then tied to his sword.
I like how Frankie and Luffy blame each other for how Chopper got this way.
Oh, I just want to mention
both of your faults.
The gigantism, which Law talks briefly about, vaguely but briefly. The silhouette we get is oars, basically, or an oars type. I think we've determined he's a type of giant. But I just thought that was an interesting note. I'll let you get back to the Chopper Beanie Baby.
He's a cell phone charm.
Sorry, cell phone.
Yeah, he really is.
Kind of Mecha Shiva.
What?
No, when he's on top of his hat, it's kind of Mecha Shiva.
That is kind of a Mecha Shiva. More Venture Brothers references, please.
That's not how it happened at all.
And then we get introduced to Caesar's favorite character, and that's Smiley. The slime.
We should mention that their goal is not to necessarily to kill Caesar, but it's to kidnap him, which is a very specific thing.
Yes, it's different for Luffy. I think Zoro notes later that didn't sound like Luffy's style. I forgot who noted that, but I think it was him.
You remember when they introduced like random centaurs with like names and stuff, and like Rebar Smoothie and Fenbach the Gourd.
Oh, great guy.
Those are like the most worthless people.
Lun the Machete.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had fun with that.
I just thought that was funny because they like matter not at all.
It's like let's mention a bunch of names for people we've never seen before and we'll never see again. Until the final
we don't have to come up with it for the data book later.
That's true. That's probably why he's doing it.
He's probably not putting that together himself.
What are your thoughts on Smiley? Smiley.
I love the way he looks. Like I noted with Impel Down, I love the way that like Magellan. Like I love the way that Oda draws these sort of like poison creatures.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like his poison effect. One thing that I remember doing this originally was, for one thing, I don't really pay super close attention to the art when when I see these chapters for the first time, because obviously I'm focused on the dialogue. And another aspect of it, which other people wouldn't realize, is that when I get the chapters in these PDF files, and the art is actually blue and the text is black, it's actually like the text itself is just a text layer. Like you can select it and copy it and paste it. but so sometimes it's hard to kind of visually make out the details. And I remember like just looking at this thing as a blob, but looking at it now, it's quite clear, even though it's a little bit obscured, that it is this the axolotl shape. Like it has those little kind of flipper things on the side of its head, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And also, I love that it's Caesar's pet. Like he actually has like a pet relationship with it, or at least he thinks he does.
Yeah, he thinks he does.
And I want to note that the Oda's like note at the beginning of the volume, his drawing for that is an axolotl.
Yeah.
Also, not to get too far ahead, but the ultimate fate of this axolotl is not a good one. I think this is the third character we've seen die, named character.
Yeah, who says characters don't die in One Piece?
Exactly. You got Whitebeard, Ace, and Smiley.
But he's also a weapon. He's the one who destroyed Punk Hazard 4 years ago, which is interesting to note that Aokiji and Sakazuki had their battle on there 2 years ago. Which is actually, that comes back at the beginning of the arc when Smoker's like, yeah, there's no reason for this poison gas to be here.
We also get a quick flashback as to what the hell happened to Brook, Nami, and Sanji, Nami, and Zoro when they got knocked out, including images of what an abominable snowman looks like. That is just a very hard word for me to say.
It's one of life's great mysteries.
I love each of their depictions.
Yeah. Brooks is like a Katamari guy. He's got the.
Zoro's looks like that kid with the pointy head.
I don't know why Sanji Nami wants it to look beautiful. It's a Yeti. I don't really see the point of it looking that good. Anyway, so we get a whole explanation of that. Not much to say. I don't really think about it.
Oh, we forgot to mention earlier that Kinemon ran off.
Oh yeah, to find his body.
Right, and
you
we
forgot
find
to
him
mention
frozen.
It kind of just happens. It's like not really. It doesn't mention. It's not mentioned.
It's like when Frankie disappeared for a volume.
Which happens soon,
yeah. But yeah, Warrior does not feel cold, and he just can't ask for help, and they ultimately get him to do it though.
Yeah, and I like how he's completely frozen there as well. Also interesting, I just that conversation with Sanji in Nami's body struck me as interesting. I don't know why, and. During that whole thing, you get this kind of operation that Law put together here. So you got Luffy's attempts to capture Caesar.
Obvious attempts.
I'm here to kidnap you. He just runs in and tells, which is great. Meanwhile, the Smiley ending up everywhere first, burning people, then that's set on fire. That's a good idea, right? And it just exploding. Which do provide for some really cool panels.
I really like just the concept of having he has this giant slime and it not only is it shooting these things so that it provides an immediate menace to the characters on the other side of the lake, but that he also had this explanation that it's not just generating this slime, it's actually shooting pieces of itself, and that's how it's getting across the lake. I thought that was very clever.
And you can't burn it, and you can't set it on fire, and it's also a threat to our heroes at the lake because Sanji has to dive into the water because it's seawater, and Kinemon's a fruit user. Then he can't move. That's why he's stuck there. So it's also a danger to it's danger to everyone on the island.
I also like how Luffy's attempts, as we said, to kidnap Caesar are to grab him. Gotcha.
Well, he does fight Smoker in Shigi's body a little bit first.
Oh yeah, and he's like, "You're weak. What the hell?" And decides that they'll fight at full strength at some point.
There's a lot of never completed. There's a lot of just interrupted fights in this arc. I feel like.
Yeah, it's a kind of chaotic arc.
Like when Monet interrupts the fight. With Luffy and Caesar later on.
Yeah, there's a lot of... You're right. I think it's done a little better than Oda usually does. Even the scene of Luffy getting trapped in something isn't that annoying because it's kind of important.
So it's also only like a chapter and a half.
Yeah, it's not very long either. Well, I'll talk about that when we get to that. I love how no one notices Chopper in a bag. Also, when Law sets him down.
Yeah. It's cool that Luffy is immune to the poison, so Caesar has to come up with new more inventive ways to fight him.
And he's also very offended that he would even compare him to Magellan. It's like, I am a Logia user. I am way better. And also the suffocation thing, I thought was a really interesting.
That's the part that made Caesar dangerous. Actually, is that he actually has more like Crocodile having a very good command of his devil fruit powers.
He does. I mean,
he's a naturally a very weak and like cowardly person. So like he can't be that strong, obviously. But he really does have like a knowledge, and he's very obviously very smart, very evil and crazy. But he understands he understands how gas works. You know, we saw it in the anime episode this past week, which actually that would be a spoiler to talk about it. But he understands how his powers work in a way that not a lot of characters did up to this point, although I feel like more will in the future because that's how you get to be strong in the new world.
Yeah, I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's a smart character writing to have a scientist with a kind of somewhat scientific power, so he would understand exactly how the gas would work as a scientist. Yeah.
And the thing is, you know, the entire, much like Hody Jones in the previous arc, you're like, Luffy could kick this guy's ass, but he's at least menacing in many other ways. And the guy who comes next is also very menacing and a lot more unknown, and that is Mr. Virgo, as we see here.
He's so ominous.
He's a mystery man when we're first introduced to him, and he's ominous except for the burger stuck to his face. It's a good thing I had a hamburger before recording today, because otherwise I'd be very hungry.
Wait, there's some of it on your face.
Oh, shit. Well, that's good. I have an extra meal. He does eat it a little later on, which is nice. I kind of want to talk about this more in the Reverie segment, this whole interaction.
Virgo-san?
I'll just say this. I think Oda did a very good job with this conversation, considering I think we were in the dark as to what he's referring to and what's going on here, and you're going to be in the dark reading this until
the next arc.
Yeah, 100 chapters from now. I'd go so far as not 100, but like 60 chapters after this at least.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very cool that Oda clearly had that all in his head, and you read through it now and you're like, oh, he knew what was happening here. Also explains a lot about Monet, because I'm surprised up until this point Law wasn't more suspicious about her. I guess he was and he wasn't, but
I mean, he gave her wings. I mean, well, it's implied that he did.
No, I think they say that.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't have them in her first appearance, so chronologically her first appearance, not the first appearance in the. You know what I
mean? I do. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Virgo's design other than the hamburger, I guess?
I love that coat.
It's an understated. So cool. It's an understated design. He's so intimidating he has a very economical design. He's not a character who needs to move much to intimidate you. He just needs to stand there and stare at you.
Yeah, he has the feeling of a clearly he's a bad guy. He's, as we find out in this arc, he is not just a ruthless naval officer. There's more to him than that, but he definitely has the feeling of, like a very experienced mafia type guy. Like he knows like the quickest way to take somebody down and does not waste his time with a lot of ostentatious display. Yeah.
Which is
very meticulous facial hair too.
Yeah,
it's different than anyone else in this arc because there's a lot of ostentatiousness in this and the next arc. So Virgo is an interesting example of not that.
Yep. I remember. I remember kind of. There's so much mystery about him. I remember theorizing that he had some sort of static powers or some sort of reason why food stuck to his face all the time, but no, it's just a funny character quirk.
Also, Kinemon right after that gets put back together again. All the Sanji. King's men. No.
Right.
And we find out he is super tall, but it is One Piece, so
he's like as tall as Brook. He's like 9 feet tall, and he does the full. He does the full bow to
Sanji,
think, like face on the, which has to be, given what we think about Wano being Wano being this land of Bushido. I mean, I guess it makes sense that he would do that if he really felt that grateful, but it's like it's not something that a samurai would do normally.
We also find out his power,
Yeah, and he'd already been like established as someone who was like stubbornly not eating and not asking for food and not asking for help. And so it definitely was dramatic, even without the context of Wano.
So we find out he has a sword that cuts flames and creates flames, which is interesting to Zoro especially.
Yeah, I think very in a few chapters they have that bit with when they charge in and they're fighting G5 after they go into the shutter, and the G5 are like, it burns, it hurts, it freezes.
So we also get the reveal of who Virgo is through this trip to G5 and Commodore Yarasugi. Do you want to talk about him a little bit, Stephen?
Yeah, his joke, I think it becomes obvious as you read him, but Yarasugi means going too far or doing too much, and so that's his kind of speech quirk is he exaggerates everything, and his guys are like, oh, you're going too far, and he's an exaggerated figure. Gosh, what is it exactly that he reveals here?
He reveals that Virgo's a vice admiral here.
Right.
I think it's the big reveal. It's also really cool, and I know we harp on the Caribou cover story a lot, but it really weaves into these stories immediately. Yarasugi comes up, I think, like soon a few chapters later in that.
I think that was a kind of perfect placement for him because he's not interesting enough to actually have in the main story, but it's nice to like populate the cover stories with characters that are quote unquote real characters that have shown up within the main story.
We also find out that a little bit more about where the kids presumably are.
Oh, we also get the part about the devil fruit though. After Caesar captures all the main characters from like the entrance and takes them up to his cage, and then we find after he sets off the the real experiment. It's time to begin, where he gives Smiley the candy.
Oh well, you're cutting ahead of one important thing.
But I missed.
Yeah, you're way ahead. The important thing is we find out about the black market. We find out about Joker, and we find out who Joker is. And it is Don Quixote Doflamingo.
At last,
we kind of have the main villain here, I think. And what were your initial thoughts on that, Joey? If you remember,
Wait, that wasn't skipping too far ahead. That was the same scene.
He just says that he was doing it, but I don't think he actually feeds the.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, sorry, Joey. If you have thoughts.
It was definitely one of those instances where he pulls in a character that we've been wondering about for a long time, and it's exciting to be kind of like almost like a checklist at this point, kind of like, okay, this guy, I've wanted to see what his deal was for so long, and now we're finally going to, and it's very exciting.
Makes all that foreshadowing with him during the war, like why they focused on him so much, makes more sense now.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of slotting something into place. Like, okay, this is Don Quixote's deal. That he's not just a pirate. He's an arms trader. He's a black market dealer, which really fits with his what we know about his personality as a kind of ruthless pragmatist and someone who is all about seizing power in whatever way he can. And that was very cool. I remember this being a huge. When I saw this, I was like, "Oh man, people are going to flip out when this chapter lands."
And we also found out that Law used to work for him, which is, I think, a big reveal at this point.
Yeah, and it explains a lot about Law's quest here with why he wants this alliance and why this is important to him, because there's clearly some things have gone down between them.
Meanwhile, Caesar frees without much coaxing, frees all the kids who are now relatively withdrawing, and they're also super powerful, so It provides for some interesting scenes with Nami, Sanji, and Usopp trying to go against Caesar themselves with limited success, to kind of the same fate as Luffy there. And Brownbeard's actually the one who steps in to save the day. Kind of. We also get Caesar's wonderful, what do we call this balloon ship? I don't remember what we called it, but it's ridiculous.
It's like his little Fantasyland balloon from South Park.
Yeah, the Imagination Land balloon.
Imagination Land, that's what it was, yeah.
It's exactly the same, except slightly more insidious.
Look at all the Caesar faces he makes on this page, where he hop onto my flying gas balloon, the face he makes there, and when he's talking to Brownbeard,
yeah,
that's one that's not a face we get to see very much. It's usually more eyes popping out, shocked face kind of stuff, and
Caesar has some great facial
it's so him, he embodies that face.
Yep, that's he's the cocky guy pretending to be someone he's not sometimes.
It's very superior.
We also start getting hints as to the underground world watching everything that's happening here, which I thought was an interesting element.
Very exciting, because we immediately see Baron Tamago and Peckham's again. And Kid, yeah.
For the first time here in the post-time skip. I mean, we got that picture, I think, of all the supernovas prior to this, so we kind of knew what he looked like already. But for those reading, it was the first time. And I think the chapter immediately following, maybe it's 2 chapters after that, we get to see a lot more of that as well. We also find out that Mocha, that's the correct
Mocha, yeah.
Actually snaps out of it, and is kind of the only one who snaps out of it. And we also find out a little bit about the super complicated heart deal that Law has with Caesar.
It's less complicated than it seems after reading it. I was very confused about it the first time we read through this, but the heart stuff makes sense to me, after reading through it the second time.
Yeah, so I think they kind of go back and forth. So Monet gives Law
the initial deal is that, Caesar's I need to have something on you, so give me your heart, I'll give you Monet's heart. And that's where we are after, but then Law also in that previous fight took Smoker's heart as well.
Right. So now there are 3 hearts. Okay, and they prove that it is indeed the heart, and then we see Ed, the candy, and the death of Smiley. But we also first see Vegabunk's dragon, and Joey, I know you want to talk probably a little bit about that.
Oh, I love this dragon. Yeah, I had mentioned on Twitter I love the dragon and I love Smiley's design. I actually prefer this dragon's design to the one that shows up at the beginning of the arc.
It is the improved model.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think he looks great, and I think he goes from goofy to serious looking in a fun way, and it's almost sort of shocking when he gets kind of scary. He's not that scary, but you know what I mean. Yeah, and he's chomping on some meat, so Luffy could get along with him, maybe.
Besides the dragon, I also wanted to mention the weird tick that Virgo has with oh right, there isn't any X, but in this particular situation,
when he comes, weird joke.
When he comes, the first time it shows up is here when, or I think it's the second time it shows up is when Caesar returns up to where the cage is and they have everyone imprisoned with Smoker and Luffy and Law, and he's like, I was just you didn't make no weight at all. I was just snacking on coffee and cookies. Oh, cookies are gone. Oh, I didn't.
There were no cookies.
It's I just thought it was very funny. It could be read really passive aggressive, oh right, there aren't any cookies.
Okay, now I like that joke.
Yeah,
now I like.
It doesn't work like the other 3 times he does it like that. It just not very funny that time.
It's just weird for a guy who's supposed to be who's in charge of so much double crossing and espionage to be so forgetful.
Aloof, yeah. On the page with the small dragon is probably one of my favorite Stephen moments. You could probably find it. It involves Caesar. That's all I'll say. Page 157. So we also get Smiley eating the fruit, which is an amazingly stupid exchange between Caesar and himself, basically. Because
yeah, this tells you a lot about his relationship with Smiley as his pet. Is he just yells at it and Smiley just does whatever he wants,
which happened to be the same thing as Caesar.
He's like trying to give the speech. He's like he's going through this whole rigmarole, and then he just eats it. He's like, wait, no, wait, you weren't supposed to. Okay, eat it. Yes, good boy.
It's the disobedient dog that you pretend you've trained perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully you're not training your dog to eat a poisonous candy, but if you did, this would be the scenario. And
what did you think of this color spread? This old-timey London color spread.
How brazen-faced they are about their wrongdoing.
I don't know. It just seemed very fun to me. I like the motif of the nighttime, and the flying teacups. It's.
Ed, don't tell me you have the calendar version of this.
Not up right now. I could get it if you want.
No, it
definitely has a very a Great Mouse Detective feel to it, just because of the Big Ben at Night thing.
Yeah,
that's what it makes me think of.
Chopper and a flying lion, or whatever the hell that is.
It's included in the opening, right? In one of the openings. I think this is one of the ones.
I think it's in Hands Up. Which is the most forgettable opening for me.
Wasn't that the one that wasn't in the simulcast?
That's why it's the most forgettable one.
That's why I don't remember this.
I think one of my favorite parts about the openings is that they do attempt to sometimes do that. I mean, opening 12, you could say all you want. There's tons of terrible things about it, but they do a pretty cool job animating some of the color spreads. Anyway, plot. So Smiley
how devil fruits are made, Zach?
Yeah, this is a kind of momentous chance to see how that happens.
It's a huge thing, and I think a lot of people maybe kind of overlooked what was actually happening because it doesn't go directly commented on. He just shows it to you, and then there's nothing else about it.
It's better to show than tell.
Yeah, but I'm sure that this will probably be explained, literally in the text at some point. We still haven't seen this described yet, but it seems to suggest that when someone with devil fruit powers dies, that if whatever fruit is nearby, whatever the nearest fruit that kind of spirit can inhabit, it will go to it, and so just. One of those apples turns into a devil fruit.
Poor Smiley.
Maybe. I was thinking about that, with Blackbeard and Whitebeard at Marineford, and I wonder if there's something about Blackbeard where he can intercept it before it goes back into a fruit. Maybe that's
with the darkness power.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So he doesn't actually have to eat the devil fruit, but he could just kind of steal it as it leaves the dead body.
Right.
The only weird thing though is. How did he teach his crew to... Well, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah,
Well, no, that is mentioned in Fishman Island that his crew is stealing the devil fruits.
That's right.
So it's... I'm not spoiling anything. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about.
Well, they could just be using fruit. They just carry around a sack of fruit, and there you go.
Yeah, I guess it's easy enough. I mean, how often are there just fruit next to devil fruit users dying? How often are there people dying in the One Piece world? Not that much. In the present, anyway.
I do kind of like that Smiley dissolves into a giant fart.
Anyway, so we get another look at the brokers, including this Lucci-esque figure, who I still think is Lucci. And we also get the Dabba Dabba run, as we call it.
Yeah.
Which I assume is named after the Flintstones, but I might be wrong. I guess there's nothing else to say about that. I feel like I want to say more.
Doesn't one of the observers kind of look like Frankie with a downward-facing haircut? His face. Is next to the Rob Lucci guy, in between the two big guys in the panel next to that.
I don't know who that is.
I think that's the mask guy yelling for master.
I think so as well. I think that's something on the screen that's happening.
Yeah, he's talking about sitting in between the lion and the hooded guy, right? Is that what you're talking about, Ed?
Yeah, he's got that banana-shaped face.
Oh, yeah, he has the triple or quadruple chin, is what you mean.
That's, or maybe, I don't know if
that's... He kind of has a triangle nose.
He's triangle nose, and he has that. Maybe Frankie was never left Vegapunk's island. Maybe that's a different Frankie. No, I don't.
Some lost shit you're doing here, Zach.
I'm sorry. So yeah, we see the Smiley turning into the land of the dead, as it's called, Shinokuni in Japanese, right?
Yeah.
It's like Pompeii, basically.
Yeah.
Everyone covered in ash.
And so, much like his Austin Powers style, normally Caesar here I'm just going to put you in a cage outside and not pay attention to you, and I'm sure you'll all die. But that's when Law says it's time to counterattack. Meanwhile,
someone throws a piece of paper at Chopper's head, too.
Oh, yeah. I think we could assume that's Law.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we have another alliance brewing as we cut back to Kid here, who is watching this all happen. And Killer, who is talking about, I'm not into black market shit. And we see that he's actually has some guests, and it is his new alliance. Ed, who's in his new alliance.
Well, that would be Scratchman Apu and...
Did you
Basil
forget his name?
No. Yeah, a little bit. Basil Hawkins. He's one of the least interesting supernovas to me.
But he has the best Funimation, one of the coolest Funimation voices.
That is true.
Yeah,
I love
coolest.
I just want to point out first, the thing that I love about this alliance is that Kid is kind of like, Killer is the organizer of the alliance, basically, because he has to remember, like, hey, Kid, relax, as they go to meet these guys. Like, I'm surprised they even showed up, so be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like kind of mirroring Luffy's crew. In order to be a successful pirate captain, you have so much of a sort of crazy, wild personality that it's up to your navigator, etc., to sort of keep you in line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that dynamic. Yeah.
What did you guys think about this alliance potentially happening here?
This is where like it really starts to kind of make sense. Like, oh, okay, now not only are Luffy and Law in an alliance, but we've got other supernovas, semi-familiar characters who are doing the same, and they're going to have their own goal, and we don't know if that's going to cause them to butt heads with Luffy and Law or not. But it's really exciting, and particularly because it's obvious that they're not going to play a part in what's going on right now with Punk Hazard and Caesar Clown. This is something that's setting up seeds of future developments. Yeah. And so that was really exciting.
It's cool how it is tied into Punk Hazard, though, because they're watching it.
Yeah.
It's a very different. We don't see anything like that.
Yeah, it's. I remember specifically about Punk Hazard, like with the revelation of Don Quixote Doflamingo being Joker, and then this stuff with the alliances. That it was kind of like the first time that Oda had done big picture, like kind of outside developments in the middle of an arc, while something big, while the Straw Hats were wrapped up in their own business. Lots of times he just saves those for, when the action is over and you kind of see the consequences of it. But in this case, it actually is seeded into the arc, which made it really exciting because you never knew when something completely unexpected was going to show up that was not happening on Punk Hazard.
I'm going to say
it makes sense because we don't get much of that post arc stuff. We go directly into the next arc after this.
We get some post arc. I'm a big fan of that. I wish Oda did it more. I don't think he does it very much in the next one. Maybe later. Who knows? Then we get the whole scene of them escaping, as Luffy puts it. Yeah, freedom. And we also get Law's deal with Smoker and Tashigi, who have now been transferred back into their regular bodies, much to, I think Tashigi is not happy.
To her relief.
With what Smoker did there.
Although she is quite chagrined.
Bashful.
Yes, bashful. That's good.
Well,
she makes that pouty face.
Look how she's sitting. That's like a guy on the subway train,
But on the next
page,
she's
manspreading.
She's manspreading.
On the next page, after she's put her coat back on, she's making this ridiculous pouty face at Smoker. It's hilarious.
I like Tashigi a lot. She's not the strongest character, but she's in terms of like power or strength, but she's really fun and I like her a lot.
I feel like they do too much to tell Tashigi, hey, you're weak in this arc.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I'm a big fan.
We can talk about that a little bit later when we see the kind of the chief
culprit of that.
Yeah, culprit of that. Yeah.
We'll get back to that. So we have a lot of things going on at once, but
Sanji gets
Nami's boob.
Yeah.
That's
superpowers.
That's how he catches the dragon, though, and gets back in.
Zoro is appropriate. What kind of ridiculous power is that?
We get to a 2-page spread that we talked, I think, last time about one of the ones that Viz sold at Anime Expo.
I have that one. Yeah.
The one
I
have here is the Punk Hazard one with Luffy, Law, and Smoker.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very big moment here as they open the gate and we see the kind of weird motley alliance that's formed between these three, at least for the sake of this arc. And it provides a really cool kind of prelude into what we're about to get into, and that's a lot of crazy fighting. I think we could get through this a little quicker than what's been happening so far.
Well, basically, Team Zoro bursts in, and they've basically screwed everyone, because now the gas is coming in everywhere.
But they close it right back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the motivating thing of the next 20 chapters is...
They're all inside now.
Yeah, escape the gas.
Escape the gas and get Caesar and get Virgo. And so let's go through some highlights of that experience. First is the Gum Gum UFO.
Oh, love it.
I love the line that comes directly before that. Zoro's like, don't be careless, Luffy. I told you, take this seriously. And this is Luffy taking it seriously. He attacks like a UFO.
Yeah, I like that moment. I forgot I should have mentioned that because I thought that was kind of one of the first mate moments where Luffy has to where Zoro kind of has to shake Luffy. It's like, okay, now don't screw around. We gotta do this right.
Well, the first one was back in after Enies Lobby.
I mean, it's happened before, but since the New World, I think this is kind of
I say screw Skywalk or whatever. This is a better way to fly.
I agree. I love the design and all of that. That concludes 68. Actually, that's a weird but funny place to end it. So let's talk about volume 69. We should probably talk about the cover first. Joey, do you want to start us with this one?
Not a huge fan of this cover. The red line is a strange design element that I don't feel like works super well. But
I think it's cool if you know what it is referring to. At the end of the arc, but the execution is not like particularly stunning. It's just kind of like, oh, cool, that's the thing from.
It's kind of a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
It's also the longest volume in One Piece history. It's like 250 pages, 12 chapters.
Oh, jeez.
I noticed that when I picked up the book. I was like, oh, man, this is hefty.
It seems a little arbitrary, and I think the reason, in Oda's note, I think he explains it in the SBS, is that he just really wanted that last chapter to end the volume, and it is definitely a monumental one, but it kind of seems like he didn't really pace it out quite right.
The thing is sometimes the Jump editors, they just can't say no to
you can't say no to Oda.
No.
I'm fine with that personally. I like bigger volumes. I don't know what he's complaining about because you're technically getting more bang for your buck here.
Well, he's fighting for the rights. He's fighting for the readers is what he was doing.
Someone gave me a copy of, a copy of this one, the Japanese volume, as a gift a while ago, and this is one that has a secret Panda Man in it, isn't it? In the inside slipcover.
I would have to get it off the shelf.
I think like Panda Man's like peeking out behind somebody and giving a peace sign or something.
Yeah, I think that's one of the few I don't have from this arc on my shelf at the moment. So
let's see.
While you do that, I'll say my opinions. I think parts of it are really cool. I think it's just like he combines a bunch of really cool stuff, and it's too much. Do you know what I mean?
All the poses are really cool.
Exactly.
Like they're classic. They're like classic movie poster poses. There's just too many of them.
There's just too many. Exactly. I think Luffy looks awesome and badass. Zoro looks incredibly bad. Even Tashigi does. Smoker does. Law does. They all look. Even Momonosuke. I think the part that probably could have left is the Chopper and the kids. I don't think needed to be in there. Joey, what did you want to...
I was right. It's on top of Luffy's head. There's like a teeny tiny Panda Man giving a double peace sign.
Oh, right. This is when he's just like sneaking around before he invades the cover.
Yeah.
I like those Panda Man adventures. For anyone who has the Japanese versions, check that out. Either way, we got the good toilet paper. What do you call it? Explanation in this
toilet paper race. Yeah.
Which, you know what? That's an actual issue, and I'm glad he's addressing it. I do hate it when that happens. Anyway, so we go to the land of death and kind of just explain what's going on here. There's an A, there's a B, there's a C, a D, and an R. Of course,
we're going to go through all of them.
We're going to go through all of them. Don't worry. I know everyone wants to hear a little bit about everything. We'll even go through the hallway between A and B. yeah, there's just a lot of chaos. I don't really know how much you want to go through it. We get cool stuff like everyone trying to get through the door by, I don't know what you call that, diving in, literally. I don't know if you know what I'm referring to. That's on like page 24.
Yeah, it's kind of an Indiana Jones maneuver.
Yeah.
And that's right before we get Virgo betraying the G5 and like destroying them, which is really brutal. It's really brutal for Tashigi. He's not here for backup. And
they kind of have to. I like how G5 are treated like kids. They're like,
that's what they are. Yeah.
This is a fake Virgo. It's someone impersonating him. The real one never would do this.
Yeah, he's not going to see Doflamingo. He's going to tend to his sick little sister.
Oh my god, that I'm like, oh, no one got that lie before this. That's too obvious. It's also cool seeing him in his marine coat, which I think is one of the few times we see, and kind of him as a marine. Is just through this little Tashigi flashback. We also see a little of the dragon, who starts going a little bit berserk as well during this whole thing. And Sanji coming in to kick Virgo's ass a little bit.
Because the lady's tears were falling.
I think that was a very redemptive moment for Sanji, which we need at this point in the series.
It's on the chivalry side of chauvinism.
Yeah, there you go.
That's slightly the way to put it.
Yeah. We were talking about that he crosses over that line with impunity. He goes back and forth, but this is the more honorable side of it.
And immediately after that is I really love this. It's the scene that ends this particular chapter with Luffy and Smoker, where it's basically like, I don't know, it's like a movie scene or something where Smoker has been floating along. Luffy has been running so fast that the ground is on fire, and they just have, it's like almost like a Judd Apatow banter. Like Luffy is wheezing and panting. He's like, "Wait, no, you gotta wait. And Smoker's like, "Okay, now? Are you ready now? What about now?" And he's like, "Oh,
no, not
oh,
yet.
That feels better." And then he hits the button. He's like, "I didn't say now." And and they're arguing about who gets who, and it's just great stuff. And then of course, like the classic Luffy, like basically the Luffy sucker punch, where he just walks in the door and punches the guy, which he did in Arlong and does it again here. I love it.
It's great, and he does it to Caesar a lot. Let's be honest. Caesar gets beaten up a lot, and
at the end of the arc, you can see him
deservingly.
His speech is messed up because his nose is broken.
Yeah,
I love that.
Caesar deserves every punch that comes to him here, and then some. Also,
you get that Virgo and Sanji fight is actually really fun as a fight, like the way it's drawn. There isn't much dialogue there. It's just very nice to look at. And although we do it does get cut off in the middle of showing it. But the gas was coming. And we get that bit with Sanji. He doesn't want to hear the G5. He only wants to hear the voices of ladies.
Also, just to talk about the Luffy-Caesar fight a little bit more, we get to see the gas form again there. I was trying to remember when it happened.
And a thing I like about that is that his nose is bleeding as the gas. So he's a gas, but he's still been punched in the face.
And the other time he does it, Zach, is when he's watching the monitor in the secret room at the end.
We also get his blue sword, which is the closest thing we're getting to a lightsaber, probably. So
we had Foxy's Noro sword.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Oda will put out another one when Star Wars comes out. I'll get really excited about it again. Yeah.
I definitely say it's too soon to count out lightsabers for One Piece.
Hopefully we'll see a lot. And so then Monet interrupts the fight, Ed, as you were alluding to. Earlier.
Lots of things get interrupted in this arc.
They do. And so then we get the kind of conclusion to the Virgo-Sanji fight, which doesn't really have a conclusion. It just, they go their separate ways, I think. Yeah. And meanwhile, Law realizes, we realize what he's planning here. And he goes to whatever S.A.D is, and he goes into that room, and he looks really happy about it. And then we go into the S.A.D room. Or the S.A.D room.
More Akira imagery.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of that. I can't say I'm not.
Like giant, hyperbaric chambers and huge pipes leading up to nowhere and stuff like that. I love it.
And again,
all we're missing is the Olympic Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, a credit to the background artists here who... I think Oda definitely has some of like the best background artists. It's crazy how good these things look, and And I think sometimes the little people don't get mentioned enough, and not the little people, but little people. And
don't spoil anything, Zach.
We know they exist in One Piece somewhere, right? And yeah, then after that, we get to go to Dressrosa. Ed, do you want to talk a little bit about what's happening there?
Yeah, Doflamingo, he's a little bit upset with Law at this point, but yeah, I don't think he's not feeling like desperate yet. But
we find out he kind of grew up with Doflamingo.
Yeah, took him in like a little brother. Yeah. And Virgo understands, and we find out later that Virgo has been with Doflamingo the longest of anyone. So, but that's just mentioned much later on. But he's attacked by one of his
subordinates.
Yeah, one of his subordinates by we don't see her name just yet. But,
well, we know it's Baby 5 later on in this arc, so
yeah,
we can say it is
said.
And this guy with a top hat takes a shot at her, and I remember, I don't know, a lot of people. I'm not even going to get into that. Like,
thought it was a person in particular.
Yeah, the theories about that are still spoilers.
Well, they're not because they're not true. But listen to the podcast at the time.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, the main thing is that we get to see a lot of his crew members, even if we don't know about them. It was very exciting to see all of these weirdos that he's hanging out with.
The little girl. Yeah, a little girl eating grapes, the old weirdos playing cards. Yeah, it's quite a group.
A thing I noticed this time that I did not really think of much beforehand is that above Doflamingo's head is a little panel with a guy swimming in an inner tube.
Yeah.
You think that's someone hard-boiled?
He's splashing some girls.
Maybe so.
It's possible.
Yeah.
No, that was like, this was a mind-blowing chapter. It also kind of just showed how crazy powerful Doflamingo is, because this girl who is clearly powerful and has really cool powers, to this day I think probably one of the coolest devil fruits, he's just able to deal with her and not pay attention and stay on the phone talking about Law.
He makes her point her own finger gun at her head.
Yeah.
Crazy. I'm trying to see if this works here. I bet you didn't buy any cameras. Yeah, I didn't buy any cameras. No, that doesn't work as well.
Then I'll bring back one of his ears. What?
He is a mafia boss. It was very. I think Steven, you said that. That's a very good description of Virgo. He is. What was it? The movie that we always make fun of referring to that. I don't even. Never mind.
The Departed.
The Departed. I was gonna say Scorsese. It's kind of like that. You get that vibe through it. Anyway, keep going, Ed. What happens next?
The Brownbeard bus is a going.
It's pulling into the station.
Yeah. Do you have any food back here? I am not a lounge.
Yeah, and they try and hang up their clothes on the back.
Yeah. And then the dragon is disappointed. Brooke is so angry at the dragon for like, oh, I'm not even interested in you. You don't. Bones have nutrients too.
I love that gag.
Yeah. It's and then Brooke is like, I had a good reason to hurt him, but what was your reason, Kinemon?
And he's like, oh well, basically they killed my parents, right? Something along those lines. And he's like, oh, okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
Not as good as my reason, but okay.
Yeah,
it's a grudge against dragons.
Also cool to see those two fighting together, the fire and ice. I think that's a really cool combo.
And I love this. Obviously, we know that this little dragon is not Momonosuke, but at the time we did not know that. And I love that just the page after they just completely clobbered this little dragon, this little girl says, "Oh, it's the little boy who turned into a little dragon, Momonosuke." And for like that one chapter, I was just like, "Oh my God, is there some kind of horrible irony going on here?" And it turns out it's a little bit of a red herring, but it was a great trick. Yeah.
I also like Kinemon interprets all of the Straw Hat's powers as ninjutsu, although Nami is actually doing the ninja thing.
Yeah.
And then she claims she's being a samurai, and she's going nin nin nin. It's like, no, that's a ninja.
Stinky flower. That's a funny one.
So Luffy's way out of the Monet igloo, which is this. Monet is a creepy villain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd like to sort of speak to that.
Yeah,
in this
go ahead.
scene.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so she hugs him. She sort of reflects Yuki Onna, which is like a snow woman, which is this like Japanese spirit, like legend thing. And they say that as you freeze to death, you start to feel warm. And they depict that in Japanese mythology as like a woman that's hugging you and sort of coaxing you to die. And so she's sort of a scary spirit. And so that's a play on this where she's hugging Luffy and freezing him.
I'll have more to say about that a little bit later. I really like that jet spear panel, since we're looking at the same page there, which, for those curious, we're in 69, pages 90 and 91. It's just this, like, kind of interesting perspective right at Luffy's foot. And he goes crashing down into the garbage. And when I first read this, I'm like, oh, we're stuck in between two buildings. We're stuck underwater. We're whatever the reason of the week, but
in the trash compactor this time.
The trash compactor.
Look out for Dianogas.
Exactly.
I think actually better done here, and there's definitely more of a reason for it here. So I'm not angry about it. Not my usual self about it. Also, I love how proud Luffy was of thinking of that way out, and then falls immediately. In the most cartoonish fashion possible. Also, meanwhile, Monster Chopper tries to save the day, which just doesn't sound like a good idea.
He's guarding the candy.
Yeah, that doesn't end well for Chopper.
No.
They all try, but Mocha is the one who, runs away with it. That gets resolved a lot later. Meanwhile, this is the kind of thing that I think Ed doesn't like as much, the cutting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And
yes, actually, that is annoying to me, especially on a weekly basis.
We get the fight between Law, Smoker, and Virgo, which is cool as hell. Even though it does cut back and forth a lot.
We do get the fact that Law didn't, because he didn't know about Monet, he didn't anticipate Virgo's interference.
Yes.
And he gets quite the beating.
He does. Smoker also gets quite the beating, but as we learn later, he's buying time for Law to get his heart back. I just want to go
No. Smoker actually gets the heart back.
Smoker gets the heart.
Yeah.
Well, no. We don't find out Smoker gets his heart back until later.
Remember? No. That's what I meant. Smoker gets Law's heart back for him.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
With his smoke, I think. Yeah.
Well, he is Smoker.
But I like that Smoker is being this honorable Navy guy, and he stands up to Virgo for the sake of his men. And,
he's going up the chain of command. He's like, I don't care if you outrank me. We're not on base. I'm the captain. I'm responsible for their lives, and you are not laying a finger on them. And that's a great, great scene.
It is.
Yeah, Smoker's a cool guy that doesn't seem like the caring type, but he really does care for his men a lot.
Smoker is one of the villains, that are, I don't know what you call them, the heroic villain. He's not like a villain in the traditional sense. He's the Inspector Zenigata or whatever.
Yeah, I don't even think of him as a villain.
No,
he's the rival.
Yeah.
So
he's rival.
And then you get the whole scene where Caesar tries to, as we said, flood the chamber with gas.
Well, and get everyone to the R66, directly below,
which is where they were going anyway.
Right.
And he also explains how
this is his greatest moment. This multi-page,
several page.
Yes, this speech that he gives about his story and just the all of the pathos, the tears, the rage, the vengeance, the happiness. He just goes through all of them, all of the emotions.
For world peace.
Yeah, it's all for world peace. Oh God, I loved this scene. It was so much fun to translate.
And even better is you get to, right after that, get a little flashback with Caesar with this stupid looking hair.
It's very cute.
And the polka dotted outfit.
His bob hair.
Yeah.
His facial expressions, and also the few scenes where his hands are visible. It's and who will survive that? His one limp wrist and his other hand up here. It's oh, I'm so funny.
And so when Vegapunk says to stop the experiment, he's like, no, I'm doing it myself. And then it ends like an episode of Sea Lab 2021, which I realize is a reference most people are not going to get. And
you have to be over the age of 25 to get that.
Check it out. It's on Hulu. But you get a giant explosion and the whole thing goes up in dust.
And the best part is the quotes from Dr. Vegapunk, who actually see in profile in one matter or another. I don't know how accurate this actually is in terms of giving you it. wouldn't give it too much thought, but the fact that like he is quoting things that Vegapunk said in the flashback as being his own when he's talking to his men, like he's literally just taking credit for the things that other people did. It's great. I just love that whole sequence is fantastic.
Yeah, when I read through this again, I love Caesar's almost the perfect Oda villain because he's so ridiculous, he's so hilarious, and he's so evil. And I really appreciate that. I think he's a great encapsulation of what Oda wants in a villain, usually. And then we get to see Momonosuke, who looks exactly like we all imagined, right?
Yeah, he's a talking dragon. He's little kid dragon.
I thought he was a talking eel.
He's not food.
Talking dinner.
Pirates should be girthy.
Oh, well, yeah, we could talk about that a little bit later.
That belongs in the Reverie segment.
Yeah, it belongs in the Reverie segment. But we could talk about Momonosuke's little flashback. I like how we get these little mini flashbacks. For some reason, I don't know why Oda didn't just reveal what he looked like here. I don't really see the big deal.
It's I don't know. It's kind of like the Japanese stagehand thing.
Yeah.
Kuroko.
Yeah.
It's a little odd here because he's kind of front and center.
Yeah, it's forced. I think it's a bit forced, especially because it's not really like he's not really hiding anything. Like he basically looks exactly the same, except now he has like an outfit that you can see, and like you already see his eyes and his mouth and everything.
I think he just kind of likes to shroud. Like sometimes, like I noticed rereading the war arc that like we don't actually see Akainu's eyes for a long time before he shows up, and it's not really much more to see. But I think he likes having that impact of being like, this is the moment I will show you.
Well, I think he could have done that in a better way. I think this just feels so forced because
he looks flat. Like, he doesn't look natural, like nothing else is in shadow around him.
Mm-hmm. It's odd. I thought it was a little odd. But, I mean, overall, this little flashback is cool. It's fun how he's kind of forced to eat the defective Vegapunk fruit, so, given everything that we know, do you think that's Vegapunk's fruit or Caesar's fruit? Because it was a defective fruit.
It's in the secret room that was Vegapunk's lab, right?
Yeah. It's reasonable to think it's Vegapunk's. And it's also dragon-related, and it seems like Vegapunk was the one who was dealing with that more than Caesar.
That's true. He did invent the dragons.
It's just, sometimes, Caesar's lies are so much that is it this? Is it this? Mm-hmm. And so he transforms, but he clearly does not have command of his power. And in that, as Momonosuke kind of explains,
the fact that like Caesar's like, oh, these kids will be dead in 5 years. This is just fodder for the next experiment.
Yeah.
Well said, Ed. I love Luffy's face in reaction to that.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Frankie's face.
He says he says some kind of no word for Momonosuke that sets him off, and
it's get a grip.
Get a grip, and that oddly enough, it seems to conjure a distorted image of Doflamingo's glasses there for Momonosuke.
And his face veins.
Yeah,
Can't forget those.
It was like another kind of, oh, what does this mean? Detail, and then he basically kind of does the Oriental dragon thing where he's just kind of climbing on the clouds and just hops them right out of there. So it kind of turns out that Luffy's detour, his detour getting stuck in the trash compactor is actually quite meaningful from a story, from a story perspective,
and quick, which is also important.
Yeah, I think you recently had a listener asking if there was any, with all these dragons, if there was any, like Kinto-un, like the flying Nimbus references, and this is definitely it fits in with the dragon imagery, but you could also totally paint those yellow and then say, oh, it's just like a Dragon Ball cloud. Yeah,
it's the same design and everything, like the kind of curly look.
Yeah. No, I think I thought that. I forgot when we got that question. And so then we get a quick recap of all the fights going on, and let's actually get into them. The first one here is Zoro and Monet. And I think that there's a decent amount to talk about here. Yeah. I mean, Nami and Chopper are also tangentially involved here. Mm-hmm. Ed, you want to start us off on your thoughts on this little fight? And Tashigi's involved too, so
exactly. Yeah. It's really showing off how superior Zoro believes himself to be.
That is here.
It is. We got that a little bit with Hyozo, the frog in the small pond analogy, and it happens again here in that he is so far ahead of the people he's competing against, even when she's a Logia user, that it's hard for him not to be condescending about it. And because it's women, he also doesn't have like the best relationship with women, and
he's not good with women. Yeah.
No, but he kind of comes up like a jackass. And and after the fight's over, I like how he takes Tashigi in the old country way, dropping her over his shoulder and running off. The old country, like he's taking his pride away. I thought it was hilarious, but
it's just weird because his whole thing, like his reasoning here is that one, he just needs to stop them from going after the rest of the people that are running by. So he doesn't quote unquote need to defeat them, and then he's so much more powerful that it's sort of beneath him to actually do the thing. But I don't know, that just seems kind of weird to me because he never does that with any this is the only time we've ever seen Zoro no, I literally am not even going to bother finishing you off because I'm so above it. And that the part where that kind of ties in, and then that immediately is followed by the way that he just sort of slings Tashigi over his shoulder because for whatever reason she can't walk anymore because she's just so overwhelmed by everything.
Well, and also her body's taken a lot of damage when Smoker was in her body. She was fighting a lot. I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just has so much of Tashigi has the vapors kind of connotation to it that it's hard not to have to feel a little bit kind of soured on it in terms of Zoro's involvement.
I do really love the bit where he cuts Monet in half, lengthwise, and even when she's still in her Logia form, he didn't even have to use Haki. She's paralyzed with fear against him, by sensing his power. And it's really overplaying, or not overplaying, we're really playing up the power of Zoro in the new world.
The thing is, it's a little disappointing because the Zoro Tashigi interaction in Logtown, when we did that 3 months ago, is this very special moment. And also with Kuina, because he was used to looking up to a woman as being stronger than he was. And I kind of feel like this undoes a lot of that. Or maybe that's kind of why he has this kind of inferiority complex, maybe. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'm a big Tashigi fan, but I think a lot of that comes from kind of the potential of what her character could be and what her arc could be, and I really hope that is fulfilled because I hope that she ends up being strong and impresses Zoro to some extent. And I like their dynamic. I do think it does maybe push a little in a direction that I'm not liking so much in this particular instance, but I like that Tashigi still gets a hit in with the cutting mist and that stuff, but it's definitely has flaws.
It's interesting that Tashigi, the reason she stays in the first place is that she does not believe that Zoro would go full bore against a woman. And in a way, she's kind of proven right about him, but he says that it's for another reason. And she does kind of get the one up on him. He tries to one up her by saying, I'm just, I could have done it, but, what's the point? I'm so much stronger. And it's kind of a douchey thing to say.
Zoro's kind of a douche.
Yeah. I don't know. He's kind of he's not justified necessarily acting that way, but
he's patronizing. I think.
Yeah, he's talking about how powerful he is. And if he really is that powerful, you're almost you almost have a duty to be not that way, but Zoro can't be not that way.
I think this describes the Zoro of the New World. We've talked about this a lot. And then
he kind of needs to smack down a little bit. He needs a reality check.
He does. He hasn't got
It's almost like, he trained with Mihawk and he was so close to Mihawk during the 2-year time skip that he's kind of forgotten I really need, I need to work really hard to to catch up to him. Now it's like, well, hell, I trained with the guy. Like, I'm basically as good as him. He kind of almost has that sense about him.
It's like I fought Mihawk like every day for the last 2 years. What are you gonna be? I mean, you can't be as good as. Yeah, it's right after that we get the scene where Mocha basically sacrifices herself, and we also get a whole flashback as to them wanting to live on for their own adventures, and Chopper telling the truth, and it's crushing scene. I think very well done scene too. What do you guys think of this?
It breaks your heart every time.
Yeah, it's very good. It's almost it's almost just cruel kind of emotional manipulation on Oda's part in terms of making them as adorable and as these poor kids as plucky as possible. But I think it does serve as a good kind of example of the very human effects of the kind of callous scientific experiments that Caesar is doing. Right.
We also get the ridiculous scene after that super sad scene in which G5 led by Sanji subdues all of the giant kids.
Can we punch him in the family jewels?
No, I don't think you could do that.
It's just over the line. That is violent.
That's just over the line. G5, who are the good guys here, are just super creepy about it. And Chopper...
Chopper does promise to Mocha that Luffy will basically... He's going to beat Caesar. He's going to fix everything.
And then we get that scene kind of right away, which is nice and satisfying. I mean, first we get the Brownbeard scene, which, Ed, I think you probably want to talk
about. We've been getting this inkling that Caesar's men are starting to understand that he's not on their side, but it was going to be the final... it was going to break down the wall there when Brownbeard gave this dramatic speech, and...
He can't say the word guinea pigs.
He can't say it. He just he gave him a muscle relaxant, and actually, but Caesar, he confesses to Brownbeard like the explosion 4 years ago, that was him, just to taunt him right before he kills him. And Luffy fortunately bombs in and interrupts that killing blow.
It's it's a powerful scene, actually. I think with Brownbeard, you're frustrated for him.
Yeah, it's emotional. Like Brownbeard he's like I said before, he's a simple pirate. He's not the smartest guy, but he's very loyal and he loves his crew. And you just feel bad for the guy. He's like being taken advantage of. He's a guy who should have never come to the New World.
What's also great is that when Caesar comes in for the finishing blow, you don't see Luffy at all. You just see his fist, and you kind of see him like from behind. You don't see his face, which is this badass moment.
Caesar gives this great monologue about how protected he is. The smiles, the man-made devil fruits, Kaido, one of the four emperors, is involved. Like we're starting to get an inkling of what Law is really planning here, I think, by taking him on.
Yeah, you get like a real description of the stakes.
Yeah, but as Luffy says, that's never stopped me before.
He doesn't actually say Kaido, but I think we could, at this point, we safely assumed it was Kaido.
It's said maybe a few chapters later.
I think it's said a little later.
Yeah. Volume 7. Yeah.
But yeah, you get the hierarchy and what's happening here and what's going where, which is important, but Luffy really doesn't give a shit. He just punches him in the face. And
the gas mouth flame. That's a great.
And then he punches him in the face again. And then Usopp has his moment as well. If anyone wants to discuss Usopp's kind of role, or actually probably should wait until the Virgo fight is finished to talk about that.
He actually breaks Smoker's jit. That was impressive. Like this whole fight is impressive.
Well, I love how Virgo goes to his Super Saiyan level. I know it's super hockey. It just turns into a fully hockey body. And the next page is when Law just cuts him, the entire S.A.D. room, and the entire mountain in two.
Yeah, what a moment. This is I think the moment that I was totally on board with Law. That I was like, okay, I'll admit it. That was cool. It's just like cutting the entire island is a very cool moment for sure.
His monologue at the end of this volume is amazing.
Yeah, that's
Doflamingo, you've been complacent. You've been managing peace. You haven't been improving. You've been growing, basically fat and satisfied with your position. And other people are moving. This is how the world works. You can't keep everything. You can't stay on top forever.
And the gears are moving and changing here.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, we coming for you.
Any final thoughts on volume 69?
No.
Let's talk about volume 70. Let's talk about the cover first. We're almost done here, guys. This is a pretty unique cover. Steven, do you want to start us?
Yeah, well, it definitely, I mean, I suppose it does still work for most of what happens in this volume, but it definitely seems like it's pushing ahead because it's, Doflamingo is
front and center.
Yeah, well, not exactly front and center, but he's the biggest he's the biggest thing on the cover, and we have I like the newspaper in the background, kind of emphasizing, not only obviously it's about the law, about the alliance, but that it's it's news. It's something that is making a splash around the world, and yeah, this is kind of pointing us towards where we're going next.
Joey,
when I was pulling out the books to read for this chunk, I pulled out 70 and I was like, oh, this must not have any or much of Punk Hazard in it. And it's actually basically the whole volume is Punk Hazard still.
Aside from the whole thing is because they arrive in Dressrosa at the very end.
At the very, very end. Yeah, so it's definitely it does have that feel of a Dressrosa volume cover, but what it depicts with the Frankie robot and stuff is all stuff that happens within Punk Hazard, for sure. It might also be that yellow, the sort of brightness in contrast to the gray and blue and purple of the other covers.
I don't know. This volume cover never really did that much for me. It's not like I don't like it, but I always found it amusing that relative to the rest of the characters, Doflamingo kind of looks like Ivankov. It's just what I can't not see that way, and I think it colors I don't know. I don't find this cover very interesting.
Yeah, this is probably one of the more disappointing volume covers for me, especially in the New World. It just feels kind of, it doesn't fit.
Slapped together.
It feels very slapped together. There's some cool poses. There's some cool scenes depicted. I just think it was kind of done slapdashed. That's how it feels to me.
But starting off this volume, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go.
But starting off this volume, you get this massive 4-page cover spread
for Film Z.
Film Z. I don't think we need to talk about it, but
it's cool. Check it out.
Yeah. We had a whole segment about it when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Check that out. Greg had some great insights.
There's some really good insights. I forget which episode that is.
I think didn't he try and take elements from that and use it as clues as to who the admirals are in the after the
he may have I don't after
remember. The shakeup. I think that came from the cover spread.
Anyway, Virgo has lost, and to prove that he has lost, all his body parts have been put up onto a railing. And meanwhile, Caesar there's a cool scene going back. We also find out something about Joker's past could hurt Law. That's pretty important. And Law's like, look, don't worry about me. Worry about the fact that you're all strung out across this railing here and about to die. Which is a good point. Meanwhile, Caesar, who is mangled, his nose is in the shape of...
It's an S? Z?
It's not a penis face. It's something else entirely.
It's a Z face.
It's a Z face.
It's a crumpled up cigarette.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is what that looks like. It's a stomped out cigarette. And the Toad Goats still don't get it. So they pump the Land of the Dead, and he goes all Gecko Moria on their ass.
Wait. Yeah. Sorry to backtrack.
No,
but
please.
If that looks like a stomped out cigarette, would you say he's got a butt face?
I wish we could name these actual titles. I say that every week. So many possibilities. Usopp's watching from the sidelines as well, and we get the Gecko Moria version here.
We should mention that he was in there because he was looking for sea stone handcuffs so they can kidnap Caesar.
Oh,
I've mentioned that, yes. And we also get that great bit of astral projection Brooke in the previous volume when they're looking for the cuffs, which I just love when he does that. Whenever he does that, it's expanded in the anime.
This is probably I love this ending here. Especially with Usopp, who is a character where I think his loyalty to Luffy is so well developed that, especially, Water 7 and NES Lobby, that this speech means a lot. I don't know. What did you guys think of the final blow with Usopp's speech here?
Speech great, makes it for sure.
Yeah, great juxtaposition of those two elements, and not having it just be like Luffy giving his grand, his statement, his thesis statement on the entire arc and what the villain means. It's kind of Usopp is doing it for him, and I like that.
It also covers 2 chapters, which is kind of unusual. The finishing blow doesn't actually happen, although Caesar's pretty aware that's going to happen. And offering him a position somehow does not work to dissuade Luffy. You'd think. That's exactly what Wapol did, and Wapol had the same fate.
He wanted to make him the Vice King.
Vice King? You want to be Vice King? Caesar doesn't even offer him like a high position. He says, "You want to work for me?"
Yeah.
Which I guess the economy is doing pretty well in Punk Hazard because Luffy doesn't need it, and he throws him across, which is not the plan, but
Grizzly Magnum.
Yeah, really cool move. I love the crackling Land of the Dead coming off of the hockey elephant arms.
The Magnum
arms. Yeah. So we then go around the New World and we see Baron Tamago and Peckham's reaction. I don't know if you want to.
I love how immediate all these reactions are. It's like you can just imagine all these guys watching it, and then just as soon as he gets knocked out, they're just like getting up out of their chairs, like, "Oh shit! Oh, did you see that? Oh fuck!"
That is not good.
They're like, I didn't really like that Caesar guy anyway.
Yeah.
The one that I do love though is this really cool aviator, old looking dude. No idea what he's about, but I love his design.
Yeah, we see him a few times. He has a very cool design. We also hear
the Red Baron.
The guy,
who is Jack, and why does he need to be told about this?
Yeah,
things will get hairy when you tell him. What?
Thank you, Ed. We still don't really know about who that is.
We don't know Jack.
It'd be funny if you meant that literally. Things will literally get hairy, but yeah, probably not.
I guess it's possible. And perhaps Lucci is also talking about that. I don't know. That's inform the world. That's also I don't get that either.
I suspect they have an alliance. That's what you need to inform the world about. The fact that 2 of the worst generation have hooked up.
Yeah, but why is this guy in a position about that? Like, what is this guy doing?
This is no longer a matter of mere criminal business. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
he's a reporter of some sort, or I don't know. I still really think it's Lucci, because, come on. And I also just really want to see CP9 in a different,
different
circumstances. Because it was very heavily implied in that cover story that that's what they're doing. Meanwhile, everyone has to kind of get together here, and we also find out that Kinemon is not in great shape. He's dead, let's just say.
For now.
We were very confused how he got out of that. Yeah. The Land of the Dead does not kill anyone, is kind of the moral of this story.
Land of the...
temporarily paralyzed.
Yes. I mean, if you don't get the ash off, you will die eventually.
Yeah.
Starvation.
Rereading this during that sequence where Land of the Dead covers everything, and then there's like a couple panels where the transponder snails, which are in a bubble, like the ash all cracks off of it. I was like, oh wow, this really telegraphs the flaw of this.
Land of the Dead within 12 hours or whatever the time.
But he ran off when he was freaked out that he thought he killed his own dragon son.
Everyone is gathering in R22 to leave. Meanwhile,
66 wasn't it?
R66. 66. Sorry, being dyslexic.
But yeah, that's like the next 5 chapters are all escape.
Yeah, but we also get there's some really cool stuff though that happens here at the end. We get the introduction of the assassins for Don Quixote, or Doflamingo. We have Baby 5, who I still think is beyond awesome, despite her ridiculous character quirk.
Yeah, when this first establishing shot of her, all I could think of was like 90s Image comics, like huge guns, like swords and everything. Like, did Rob Liefeld have a hand in this?
This isn't just Tank Girl. She's also like Ship Girl and Bomb Girl and everything girl.
But like her ridiculous character quirks of not being able to say no, like being 98 million berries in debt.
We'll definitely talk about her. Yeah. We'll talk about her more when we get into Dressrosa.
This was the 8th fiance that Doflamingo is killed.
And then we get the most annoying character, Buffalo, which is not really much to say about beyond that he flies and spins.
Yeah. He makes sure to hit up Baby Five for some money for the casino later.
And they come down and, hey, look who it is. It's Frankie. He's just chilling in General Frankie.
Him?
Yeah, at the ship.
Doflamingo, meanwhile, realizes the fools. They left Caesar out. Now I could get him. I don't know why I'm acting like that, but it seems like this ridiculous, evil speech on the ledge of his palace.
It's an internal monologue, is what it is.
I want to talk about this color spread. This color spread is probably one of my favorites.
The New Age one.
The New Age one.
Yeah.
With the entire Heart Pirates and Straw Hat Pirates and all of the major adversaries and some allies left to come.
Sakazuki's mustache.
Sakazuki's goatee. We also don't get to see his eyes. What I did notice, I looked at this recently, and some people have eyes obscured and some people don't. I mean, we never see Doflamingo's, but Sakazuki's and Blackbeard's and Shanks in particular.
Killer.
And the mysterious guy at the top left that I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah, again, I think that's just to sort of give them an air of mystery and impact more than like, what is the secret with their eyes, you know?
Yeah, I think so as well. I like this color spread. I don't know if there's anything else to say about it. And so then we get a great scene with General Frankie versus Baby Five.
Yes.
If there's anything you guys want to...
I love the General just fine.
Later on, there was a lot of singing.
No, and then also like Baby Five is the Blade and the Missile Girl. I love those designs.
Aren't they references to Bobobo, the like gag manga characters?
That would totally make sense. She looks like she's out of Bobobo. Yeah, I believe that. Once everyone is set, the crew heads off. And Monet,
Caesar thinks that he has Smoker's heart. This becomes important.
Yeah, and Monet decides to then kill herself and the entire island and everyone on it.
So she's going to die for Joker, basically to cover up his mess. Cover-ups being a recurring theme going forward.
The fight between Baby Five and Frankie continue.
She's like a T-1000. Cool.
Yeah, she does a T-1000. Yeah, totally.
After the Missile Girl, because she does explode, she has to reconstitute herself.
Really cool. Oh, I can't get over how cool.
I love how Doflamingo apologizes to Virgo. That's right after that scene where they're fighting. It's like, yeah, sorry, partner. You've been with me the longest, and yeah, you're gonna die now.
It's nice to see a villain, like a boss villain, with compassion for his crew members.
Somewhat.
They're his family. Yeah.
So as she goes to kill herself and the island, Caesar decides now is a very good time to try and kill Smoker. Unfortunately,
never trust Law.
Unfortunately, that is not Smoker's heart. It is Monet's heart, and he's like, I was just trying to be nice. I was trying to give back.
I got that good karma, man.
In its heart. Yeah, it's good karma. Good karma comes back around.
But I do find it interesting that Monet says Doflamingo will be king of the pirates.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Does anyone here have wind powers? I do.
And then speaking of Doflamingo, we go back to Dressrosa briefly, and we see that Doflamingo has disappeared. And one of the most menacing panels. I love that panel of Doflamingo flapping through the sky, which I think this is the first time we find out that he could do that.
Yeah,
the skywalking.
Yeah.
I like how Frankie. He says, like, you're like a praying mantis attacking a battleship, and he uses the gigantic cannon. Awesome.
It's kind of crazy. This all happens on Punk Hazard, but Caesar is defeated, like, pretty early on in this volume, but yet it's all during this arc. So yeah, we got that fight continuing, and it's fun. I really love it, and the kids also love it when they see it.
Well, the boys love General Frankie.
I should say that. The girls don't really care. And I love that scene where, they encounter and it's like, and Law just exclaims, "Oh no, those are the enemies. You could kick their ass now." And Nami and Usopp step up, which is fun.
Well, they have no problem shooting a fleeing enemy in the back.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of this final scene here with them? Getting Caesar back.
It's good. It's good stuff. I like it. I think it's a fun way to kind of knowingly point out the place of, you know, characters like Nami and Usopp in the crew as like the people who don't really do a lot of the fighting, and to kind of joke at that, like they're living up to those roles in a somewhat exaggerated way.
Like Usopp got to be the hype man. He got to like, Usopp gets to talk to people. That's like his power, is his talking. And like he was talking to the guys up in the secret room, like telling them that, like, you know, Luffy will never forgive him for this. And when Law is like, does anyone have wind powers? Now he's like, I have wind powers. Like this is how they get involved in like contributing.
And then we get to see a mysterious silhouette. And we'll get back to that in a minute. So we head back to Punk Hazard, where the fight seems to be over, and it's time to have discoveries as to what's going on and partying. Kinemon's fine. Momonosuke is naked, and then later has clothes on because of the clothes beam. And then we kind of just go through everything here with the kids recovering and Mocha recovering.
But we get that bit with Nami and Tashigi where Nami's like, I can't say no to female sailors. There's something about it. That really tied it together. For me.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that interaction for Tashigi, like being more meaningful to one of the Straw Hats than to Zoro in this arc. I appreciated that.
And Momonosuke does the thing where he's like refusing food and whatnot, and his father has to show him like, no, you have to live on. You can't just, you know, it's not weakness to accept food like this. And it's the new Kama food too.
And it looks delicious as well.
Although I do like right before the party, like officially, like it begins in earnest, is like, okay, so guys, we don't have time to do anything. Time to go. Wait, what party? God damn it.
Also, Kinemon expounding on the Jinbei's most famous slogan, "To eat is to live."
Yes.
No, the party here this is a good party, and I think we as readers deserve a little party here.
It's it's a party when it's time to stick some chopsticks in your nose.
Yeah.
And during the parties when we get the flashback to talking about the Pirate Alliance and that they're going after.
Wait, you're skipping the most important part, Ed.
I am?
And that's Frankie's hair during the party.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry. And also that they literally pliered the information out of Caesar.
You think those are sea stone pliers?
Well, he says the sea stone handcuffs, so he's...
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So we learned that they were after Kaido, but Luffy's going to take them all down. He just doesn't want to take down Shanks first.
I should say about Caesar, they got the pliers. Where's the blowtorch?
Ouch.
You're going to go all Marcellus Wallace on him.
Law also says their success rate here is around 30%. I don't know where the hell he gets that number, but cool. And he then tells Smoker they're going to head to Greenbit. And I remember, and mostly because I just listened to this episode kind of recently to hear kind of our opinions as to this time, I was like, what the hell is Greenbit? Are we going to Dressrosa next? We find out a little more about that later. But it made for an interesting red herring, I think.
And the G5 bit about like having to run down the Straw Hats so the children don't have a positive image of pirates, and just like that's not sustainable. Tashigi's like, what the hell are you guys doing?
Just take down the banner.
Yeah, take it down. Shameful.
This gag I didn't notice until the anime, but Luffy just has a bone coming out of his mouth for most of the scene too, and Nami for some reason tries to take it. One of the funniest.
Like he's like a dog.
Yeah.
G5 has to confess that they love these pirates. Oh.
And after all that sappy stuff happens, Doflamingo notices two heads on a boat. And it's the subordinates Buffalo and Baby Five. This is horrifying. This panel, it looks like Baby Five is possessed or something. I don't know.
Well, it looks like the guillotine heads, like the tongues always hang out.
Right. And Law makes a proposal for a deal. Look, I'll give you back Caesar, but this is what you got to do for me. You have to quit the Seven Warlords, because otherwise Kaido's going to come after you. You know, you're screwed. So you got to do this for me. And it's got to be done by tomorrow morning. I need to see it in the newspaper.
Yeah. So the ultimate goal of this is to weaken Kaido so that they can take him down.
That's what he says. That's what Law says.
Yeah, that's right. That's what he says.
That's what he says.
Yeah. And this is in no way personal.
No, of course not.
This is business.
This is totally just business. And that's when Doflamingo's blood vessels pop.
Snap.
They snap, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Why have you been resisting a reunion, Law?
And we go back to... Yeah, that was a funny little scene. We go back to Punk Hazard, where we see the headless Buffalo and Baby 5 giving G5 the creeps. And their heads are snapped right back into place when Doflamingo enters the scene. And basically takes out Smoker relatively easily, it seems.
Like, I have to kill you all. You all know far too much.
I think he says, well, I'm not a mind reader, but I have to assume... Oh, no, that's later on. But still a weird kind of... Anyway, we get the explanation. We go back to the Sunny. Get the explanation for how the Mini Mary was recovered for the 8th time, presumably. And talk about the trip to Dressrosa, which we'll be talking about in our final read-through.
Oh. Also, Frankie's Pippi Longstocking hair.
Yes, the JK LMNOP hair. What was it? The Joshikose?
Joshikose, yeah.
Which means, was it like
high school girl?
Teenage girl, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
There's a faction within the Straw Hats that is strongly opposed to to doing this alliance and taking down Kaido. They're like raising their hands constantly. Me, I don't want this, me.
And you also get Caesar with his complimenty face.
Yeah, that's right. And the second or third character who warns Law that Luffy's definition of an alliance is probably different from yours.
He needs every one of those warnings.
Yeah.
And yeah, we find out kind of the shared interests in Dressrosa. But let's go back to Punk Hazard. That's what we're supposed to be talking about here. Doflamingo has Smoker pretty much dead. Yeah, ready to go. And who shows up behind him?
And we saw him alluded to earlier. That was him. This is Mr. Kuzan.
Him and Camel, his penguin.
Right.
Yes, that sentence makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it's Kuzan.
Yeah. And that's where we're going to leave off?
No, I think we should finish that fight off because this is on Punk Hazard. I know you might not have actually read this last one, Ed, but not much happens. It's pretty simple.
It's a cool fight, though.
Oh, it's a great fight. It's quick, though. So Doflamingo gets frozen, but that's
he's like, okay, this is more than I bit off or meant to bite off. I don't want to deal with you right now, so I guess I'll just have to change tactics. And we kind of get the question that we're still kind of wondering, I think, which is, what are you doing? You left the Marines. What is your deal now, Kuzan? And all we know is that he's a man who's made up his mind about something. So it kind of seems like he's had an epiphany about, let's say, the way the world works, perhaps.
And I think our final scene on Punk Hazard itself is this heart-to-heart between Kuzan and Smoker, who are definitely, we know at this point, friendly, had been.
Yeah. Is this the first time we reveal that Doflamingo is actually the king of Dressrosa?
Yes. Yeah, it's the first time we hear that. And Kuzan kind of just explaining how tough you have to keep your eye on him, and also kind of explaining what he's doing, and explaining why he saved Smoker, and saying how this is going to be the greatest challenge Sakazuki's new navy faces. I think that's a good place to end things.
Well, there's a little bit about Kinemon. There's a friend of his is captured on Dressrosa, so he wants to go there too.
Right, and I think that fits in well next week. There's not next week, next month. Cliffhanger.
There's a little bit of like Straw Hats traveling to Dressrosa stuff, but that can do that next week. Yeah. Or the next month.
Next month, probably. So September, I think we're going to be back September 17th.
Yeah.
Why don't we get into our interview with Amy and Marleen, and then we'll do the Reverie segment. You guys ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey everyone, it's time to talk with some guests that we have on today. First, we have Amy Marr. How are you doing, Amy?
I'm good. I'm even better now that I'm on the podcast.
Nice. And do you want to tell everyone what you do for Viz?
So I'm, let's see. Gosh, I do a lot of things, but on my business card it says that I'm an associate in marketing in the animation department.
It's good you had the business card.
I know. I was like, what do I do? I don't know.
And I know, Amy, you're a very, very long time One Piece fan, and you, for some reason, listen to us all the way back in the day, I think.
It's been a very long time. I kind of don't want to admit how long, but it's okay.
And we also have Marleen on. Marleen, what do you do for Viz?
I work on weekly Shonen Jump manga and other manga. Yeah.
Cool. Which series do you do?
I work on Toriko, World Trigger, Seraph of the End, and then Dragon Ball 3-in-1s, and Kimi ni Todoke, and Gakyu Ode graphic novels.
And
nothing else.
That should cover it.
Today.
So I want to go through just origin stories with you. You know how you got into One Piece. Amy, do you want to start? You know, I know you don't want to give a year to it, but you could talk about it.
Oh my gosh! You know what? I think I picked up my first manga back in college a bajillion years ago, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I just thought it was great, and then I think I fell off of it for a little bit, and then I kind of came back to it probably 7 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And it's kind of one of the reasons why I decided to get this job at Viz, is because I wanted to be closer to One Piece and all of the shows that I really like. Yeah, I am a huge dork, and I was like, how can I get people to pay me to be a huge dork?
welcome to the club, yeah, with all that.
Yeah. But yeah, so and then I've been into it ever since. So reason to stop.
Marleen, how did you get into One Piece?
So I binge watched /read Gintama, and I ran out of Gintama, and so I was like really got into what's his face, Hijikata Seiyu, and I was like, oh my god, this guy is Zoro in One Piece. And so then I binge watched One Piece and binge read it after I caught up like 500 episodes. And then I fell in love with Trafalgar Law, and from there it became one of my favorite mangas ever.
Well, we'll definitely talk about Law, because I want to talk to you guys about the Punk Hazard arc, and I'm happy to have you both on for this one. Amy, I don't know, you had to catch up a little bit, right? If I recall correctly, you took a little break before.
I did. I took a break for a really long time. So as soon as, let's see, we were in the Paramount War arc when it was coming out weekly. And then all of a sudden, one of our licensing girls comes in. Her face is all puffy and everything. And I was like, did someone die?
Oh my God.
And she's like, actually, yes. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, Ace-kun. And I was like, I'm not reading this.
I heard like when Ace died. Are we allowed to talk about this?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, this happened already. Punk Hazard is passes.
When Ace died, there was like apparently some teacher in like a school in Japan. He canceled class because he couldn't handle it. It was like,
wow.
He was like, he came in the word like holding jump, and he's just like, we can't do class today.
It hit a lot of people in the office really, really hard.
I know a lot of people, or I know a few people who had to stop reading One Piece after that happened, or take a break from it.
Yeah, I think I took a break from it for like 2 years. I was so afraid to read.
Actually, that's the perfect amount of time, considering what happens. So when you got back into it, what were your thoughts on Punk Hazard, I guess, initially?
Well, it was amazing, because then I was like, oh, this must be a sign from, I don't know, the One Piece gods. Because then I think the first thing that I opened up to was the chapter where they do the body switches.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
amazing. I was like, what's going on?
And Toshiki is your favorite character?
Yeah, Toshiki is my favorite character. Like, she's my handle on everything that I can get her on.
Still impressive that you have that on Twitter.
Yeah, well, my Twitter handle is, I think, they used to show you what number Twitter user you used to be in, and I think mine is under 6 digits, which I hear is pretty impressive.
Nice.
So I was like, I'm never giving it up.
No, you can't.
I can't. Yeah.
Let's just say, what were some of the things that you really loved about the Punk Hazard arc?
Well, I think, who doesn't love drug-addicted babies? Right? And you're like, oh my God, this is, you're like, really? Are they in, like, a methadone clinic? I don't understand. I was like, this is a manga. Like, I know manga touches on, like, really sensitive subjects and everything like that, but One Piece is not that kind of...
That kind of manga, yeah.
That kind of manga.
It's usually
but
lighthearted.
Yeah, but at the time when it came out, it was the number one, like, most read, like, serial weekly in all of Japan. So maybe he did want to make a statement. Maybe he just wanted to draw giant babies. I don't know. But that was amazing. I also like the part where when they do switch their bodies, did you notice that Law actually switches their hearts, but it's their minds that are changed, which I thought was, like, really awesome. Because I've always seen Oda as, like, a true romantic. Like, you know, like, charming kind of stuff. Not, like, romantic, like, squishy love shit. So, sorry. You might have to beep that out.
No, it's also the thing of, like, they have, people were actually Law was actually taking out people's actual hearts in this arc. And when he took out their spirits to switch their bodies, it was like the regular old cartoon heart as opposed to, like, the actual heart in, like, the box that he was taking out from everyone else.
Exactly. And I thought that was an amazing use of, like, the literal and the figurative. Mm-hmm. So, that's what's really resonated with me. Marleen, what was your favorite other than Law?
Honestly, that's what made this arc so great. Like, I don't know, I went so long with, like, waiting. Because honestly, I'm not gonna lie, like, Fishman was interesting.
You should see her face.
I know that face.
But I was kind of just waiting for something big to happen. Because I was like, oh, this is like an arc where they're pretty much just winning everything. Mm-hmm. Okay, like, we know that they powered up. And so I was, like, waiting for something really big to happen. I'm like, oh, maybe Vegapunk is going to appear. Maybe something. And it just suddenly Law appeared. I was just like, yes. There's, like, this giant yes moment. But then, like, I was like, oh, my God, is he evil? Like, what's going on? And so after that, I was like, because I honestly skipped. I honestly had to stop reading when Fishman was coming out. I had to wait for it to end. And so I, like, caught up, and coincidentally the day I caught up is when Law just reappeared. I was like, oh, this is great.
It's destiny.
Well, then he forms a pirate alliance with Luffy, and you got to be really excited because that means, like, he's basically going to be a main character from now on.
Yes,
for a long time.
Made it so great, and also the whole pirate alliance thing at the end of this arc was, like, the coolest thing ever. Because my second favorite is obviously Kid. So like, seeing him come back, seeing, like, pretty much all my favorite characters just come back was really great. And also even Toshiki and Smoker, I'm just like, this is really cool because it's kind of parallel to what happened in Alabasta. Like, it's like their second big island adventure, and here they are again.
It's also crazy because they all have to work together. Law, Smoker, and Luffy, which is kind of this unlikely and motley crew.
And what's his face? Who is it? Oh, Robin. She has this line when they're all in the cage. She's like, "Oh, this brings back memories."
And I always thought it was interesting about the Kid Alliance. Something that I've forgotten. I remember when I reread it is that Kid doesn't seem particularly excited to be in an alliance. It's all Killer's doing. Is like, come on, settle down, be nice. I invited these other guys here. I'm surprised they showed up.
What's really funny is that Killer's the one saying that too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
His name is Killer. He's like the only one with, like, humane common sense.
Yeah, maybe it's an ironic name.
Yeah.
We don't know know too much about him. They didn't reappear again until the much recent chapters, like 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So happy.
So, I get. What are your thoughts on the villains in this? I guess mainly Caesar, and the fact that Doflamingo's tied into all this. I mean, when
Caesar and Virgo and
Virgo,
partially Monet.
And Monet.
Virgo is what got me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love Virgo ever since I saw that steak on his face.
That's great.
That was about it.
For me, it was his big fight with Law that really got me.
Really
like, he played everyone, and like him almost killing Law and almost like destroying Smoker. It was really intense. And I think that he was one of the better short-lived villains. And seeing the whole Joker thing come back again and seeing where Doflamingo is actually fitting into the story, and it sets up like all the crazy stuff to come in Dressrosa. It's like, oh my god, it's a lot to like handle, because you really were like, oh, Doflamingo's kind of a jerk. We don't really know too much about him besides really subtle and not so subtle hints of him calling on the phone for the slavers and all that. And now you're like, okay, this guy is like a real big deal and working with Kaido and stuff like that.
I forgot to also ask about Kinemon and Momonosuke, who I think are some cool characters that joined in.
Yeah. They're so amusing, especially like when they like you see them later on and going on the further adventures.
Or Kinemon's chopped up face when you first meet him. I mean,
or there's like, I have an extra like the legs hanging off the side.
It's so sad. Well, then I like when Luffy first meets Momonosuke and he's a dragon, and he does the same bit when he first meets Chopper. Like, all he wants to do is eat him. And he's like, no, I'm a boy. I was like,
well, he thought he was an eel, so.
Yeah.
Well, he does look like an eel.
Well, yeah, he looks less like a Tonokai, what is it, reindeer? He looks less like a reindeer now, more like a teddy bear eel.
I know.
Like little hooves. I don't know, he's just really cute.
You mean Chopper or Momonosuke?
Chopper.
Or Chopper looks more like a teddy bear now than he did before, like a piece of venison.
You see, I see Chopper looking more like, some sort of stuffed animal that you sell everywhere in Japan or something.
He really morphed into like perfect CPG.
Yes.
There was also Law carrying him on his sword.
on top of his hat too, right?
Yeah.
No, that one did not work out as well.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, I think I have a figure with Law, and then there's the Chopper hanging off the back.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they made a figure of it, but I'm completely not surprised that there is a figure of it.
Somebody gave it to me. And
Really? Is it a gashpon or like a figure arts or?
It's like a little tiny one.
Oh, okay.
But
It's
I've
like
seen the bigger ones too.
I have a gachapon of the Luffy with the Kinemon legs on his back.
Oh my god.
Ashimaru.
Ashimaru, right.
Yeah.
Forgot the name. I forgot it had a name.
Because Ashi like.
Oh no.
So I guess since, we have a more limited amount of time, what were you really like going forward? Obviously, the Punk Hazard arc, plays a big role going forward. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on how it kind of fits in? I don't know if you got a chance to read through the full thing in one fell swoop here. How is it doing that also, I should ask. Amy, you could go first.
Oh, after that. I don't know. So, Marleen, you go.
Like reading it all over again?
Oh, do you mean like the current arc, or do you mean reading
The
it
Punk Hazard arc.
like
I'm not sure what
I asked that really weirdly. I apologize, but
rereading it again.
Yeah.
Things that I noticed. Sorry, you'll have to edit that part. You know what? This second time, I think because I had already read it once, I think my mind was in a weird space, and I had this whole like feminist rant that went through.
Yeah.
Because Zoro's not my favorite. He's not my favorite.
No.
And I think he's a total idiot. And I don't know why so many people like I know a lot of people like him, but
I know why Japanese cosplayer girls like him.
Why do Japanese cosplayer girls like him?
Because I like him for his zopai.
His zopai. you can tell what zopai is, right?
His zoropai.
His bulging Zoro chest.
Yeah.
I was assuming that's what it was, but I wasn't positive.
I made a tweet about that earlier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's good.
The small pie.
The small pie. I know, because okay, so
I think we had the same rant when that was happening too.
So good. Well, no, because then today, just recently, my boss got me the Smoker Tashigi doll, and I'm like taking bets on how many days it takes for me to get a sexual harassment complaint. Because it's the one where, her boobs are totally hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about, because obviously we work together and I can get Marleen on chat whenever I want. We started talking about, Zoro's cleavage and Smoker's cleavage and what that would be called and, like smoke pie.
We do not represent all female.
I think we're very special.
I'm pretty sure I'd get yelled at by somebody if I talked about this on the Shonen Jump podcast.
It's not canon. The smoke pie is not canon.
Well, it'll be part of our canon in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. At least that.
I mean, Smoker does like to walk around in that jacket only, no shirt.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where the fuck.
Showing off his Superman chest.
I guess he's like Frankie like that because I forgot who. I think Nami buttons up his shirt and he gets angry about it.
Yeah.
During this.
Tashigi buttons up the shirt when she is him.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She closes up his jacket all the way.
Because she's like, it's cold.
It is cold.
It is.
Smoker to unbutton Tashigi's shirt because he was warm.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, there are a lot of that kind of thing, and you mentioned with Zoro, and I'm guessing you're talking about the fight with Tashigi and Monet also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I think we were, Ed, were we very, I think we were very frustrated about it.
I was frustrated. I was a little more accepting of it because I'm a Zoro fan in that he treated Hyozo exactly the same condescending manner.
I think he's just become kind of more of a dick since the time skip.
But it's also like he's been backing it up with how
he's a strong
he
dick.
has been to all the other swordsmen in the new world so far, which is why I think Wano is going to be in large part about him and his swords.
And kind of
challenging him.
And humbling him a little bit. I think he needs to be humbled a little bit. Yeah.
He's getting kind of ahead of himself. Yeah. I guess he feels like Mihawk is the only person who is really stronger than him, and I don't think that's the case.
No.
And he just hasn't been challenged since.
Do we know what happened to Mihawk after he trained Zoro?
I don't think we've seen him after the time skip.
No.
I know that you see Perona, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I love Perona.
I love Perona too.
So many people hate Perona.
So I know you guys need to go. So where can people find you? And anything else you want to mention, go for it.
Well, people, if they want to talk to me about One Piece, they can go on Twitter and go to @Tashigi. That would be the easiest. If they want to talk to me about work, I think lately I've been on the Sailor Moon account a lot. So, but yeah, and then how can they reach you, Marleen?
Okay, so I am on Twitter a lot. My Twitter is like, if you want to see me rant about literally everything in the universe, whatever comes to mind first. I am at Michi_Ichi. Is that my Twitter? Yeah.
Is that your Twitter?
I think that's my Twitter. And
I'll put a link either way. So.
Oh, okay.
It's MICHI_ICHI. I have a cosplay Facebook.
Cool.
What is it? It's m.ichi. If you search that in pages, I don't really use it too much anymore because I'm kind of on a cosplay hiatus. You want to put it that way? Just work's busy.
Yeah. We work really hard, like super hard.
So, I cosplay from One Piece. And other Shonen Jump stuff and other non-Shonen Jump stuff. So.
Cool. It was a real pleasure to have you guys on. Sorry, Marleen, about the Sabari episode. I mean, that's
okay.
Yeah,
but we irreconcilable technical difficulties.
But we really appreciate you coming back for this. It was a really cool discussion. I hope we have you two on again. This was great.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll see you at New York.
Yeah.
Come on.
We will. We'll see each other. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the Reverie segment. Joining us again, we have Joey, Steven, and Ed. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
I am still Zach. So, Steven, you had stuff to talk about that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, well, gosh, I mean, we've been doing these Reverie segments that are meant to, kind of talk about more, recent kind of the events of each episode of this read through from, a contemporary viewpoint where, we're looking at it with what we know now. And there's not really a whole lot left in between, Punk Hazard and where we are now. It's basically just Dressrosa. But to me, like the whole thing about rereading this arc, which is, this is the first time I've reread it since it was originally published, is just how thick and how kind of tightly placed all of the foreshadowing is, because not only is there a ton of foreshadowing for Dressrosa, obviously with everything regarding law, but there's even some
when we go to Dressrosa and we see all those characters and stuff.
Yeah, but there's even some, I think, that are setting up, particularly with Kinemon and Momonosuke, the stuff that is setting up Kaido, that we still haven't quite seen yet. And it's kind of funny because I think some of this stuff that I'm going to mention, and Greg did talk about some of these things. I'm sure within like a few weeks this is going to be obsolete because we'll know these things when we actually see, like, for example, Kaido's powers. But I think, you can make a pretty good case just reading through Punk Hazard here and knowing what we know about our one glimpse of Kaido, that he is in fact a dragon. Because a couple things popped out at me. It was kind of lost to me with all the shuffle with the actual dragons that we see in Punk Hazard, but there's the mention of Kinemon, like, talking about his score that he has to settle with dragons and saying that it's like kind of a family affair.
And he says he has a score to settle with Kaido as well.
Yes.
And Momonosuke's description of a pirate.
Yes, exactly. All these things. When they mention Kaido at the very end on the ship, they both freak out, like, "Oh God, what Kaido? No reason, nothing at all. Please continue." So there's clearly something going on there. And then, when Luffy crashes down into the trash pit and he sees Momonosuke, it's like, I'm a pirate. And Momonosuke is like, no, you're not a pirate. Pirates are huge and menacing and gigantic and girthy and all those words. And like, you look at, what we've seen of Kaido, and it's like, oh yeah, that actually kind of describes him perfectly. And I think that combined with all that, with the stuff that we did go over with Kaido having appeared at the Sky Island, kind of out of nowhere, and some of his design motifs, I think it makes it a stronger case than ever. Also, like when Kinemon sees Momonosuke as a dragon, I think at first he is freaked out a little bit. And just all these things, I think they kind of paint a pretty convincing picture that is the nature of Kaido's powers.
And we also get to see Kaido a little bit in that color spread, the New World one, New Age.
Yeah, the New Age one. And as well, we also see, again, something that was referenced in the manga recap when we did it, but we also see what we now know is Sheep's Head watching the stuff on the monitor, and telling them that they need to go talk to Jack, which I'm pretty sure that must be Kaido. So there's a lot of that, and while there's obviously some really direct foreshadowing to Dressrosa, I found certain things, like we knew that law, we saw a lot of recurrence of like certain phrases and certain themes, and I really liked seeing Law quote a lot of things that were later shown to be quotes of Doflamingo's
or Corazone's
yeah, and even like, you know, that pool scene where we see Doflamingo and he's like, oh yeah, too bad about Law, you know, I was raising him like he was a little brother. And knowing what we know about Doflamingo's past with Corazon, his actual little brother, it just makes your skin crawl when you see that. And I think a lot of that is really cool, just kind of as a means of kind of a character development for Law, like kind of how deeply a lot of his time with Doflamingo kind of sank into his subconscious and you know, subconsciously influenced the way that he thinks about things and the things that he says. And you know, given how he feels about Doflamingo and kind of his general character attitude, like he kind of has a little bit of that kind of emo, like kind of self-loathing vibe to him a little bit. You know, he's always been the kind of moody, silent, you know, menacing type. And I think you kind of see, you can kind of piece together some of that about his personality, that, you know, there's this element of Doflamingo that even in these early scenes in Punk Hazard that is there, that I think, at least to me, when I imagine this stuff, that kind of, he hates that you know, he's parroting all these things, but he can't help it because it's so deeply ingrained into him.
I think that covered everything. Most of the things I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was really powerful just going through Punk Hazard and seeing all of that stuff, and it felt a lot like, especially when you looked at the Kaido stuff, and you know what's going to happen with Kinemon and Momonosuke in Wano. It almost reminded me of like when we go to Drum and you get that little note about like, oh, there was a guy who walked through here. He was looking for Blackbeard, and like it's just something that just passes right under your nose, and like you don't think about it at the time, and you know, upon reread it's like, oh man, this is actually extremely pivotal and way more important than what's happening right now in the story. Like
when Momonosuke says pirates are much more girthy than this.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, Steven mentioned that. Joey, Joey?
Well, you know, all this talk about Kaido, foreshadowing with Kaido and Doflamingo is definitely struck me as well. But what I want to talk about is Caesar's hair in the flashback.
Good.
Because it sort of it struck me that it's strangely similar to Virgo's hair in the flashback, his flashback, and I would like to see the two of them hanging out in the past with their horrible mushroom hair.
I'm sure
it was the 90s. Everybody did it.
The what 90s? The 590s? No. Maybe. The one thing I just want to mention is I'm really happy that Baby 5 might not, you know, be gone from the plot, because she kind of switches sides in Dressrosa. And seeing her powers here, it's just like, I really wish we saw more of that in Dressrosa. I understand why we didn't. But I'm glad that we will probably see her again as the final conflict ramps up. I could see her fighting in that final war, and that'll be really cool, because I love that power.
Yeah, there's also the bit about when Aokichi comes in, or Kuzan now. He's a man who's made up his mind to apparently help Blackbeard. What the hell?
I don't know. I don't know.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Someone said recently, like, oh, you kind of just skipped over that part when that happened in the manga recap. It's like, what can we say? We don't really know what the hell. We think he's a good guy still. And I do. I mean, especially after rereading this. I mean, I don't think he's a bad guy.
He may be lazy, but he is a man of principle.
He's a man of principle.
Right. And it's
one of those
why
principles is I'm lazy.
He's principled.
Yeah. Well, and that's why he isn't in the Marines anymore, because like he knew that Akainu's way of doing things was not in the best interest of the world at large. Yeah. And therefore, like when they came to blows about it and he lost, he's like, all right, well, clearly I can't, I can do no good here. And so presumably he, whatever his source, his direction of justice is, he's attempting to do it through unorthodox means now. But yeah, the Blackbeard connection is still very baffling. We have to see more about that. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is we're seeing things through the lens of Blackbeard being, I mean, he is pretty damn evil, but we don't really, has he done anything specifically evil besides just being really scary?
Well, besides
the Ace
locking up Ace and
but a lot of people don't like Ace. I mean, that's, the Whitebeard, actually, shooting Whitebeard in cold blood there was probably not very good. But I mean, we've seen Caesar as an example of someone who we've seen do much more evil things than Blackbeard, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure we will see something in the future rebutting what I just said. And any other thoughts?
One thing that I think is interesting is to just sort of see this arc, how it's structured, and see it in comparison to the two that surround it. And it's really, it's a little bit longer than I thought it was, but it feels like it really moves. Like,
it does.
Fishman Island feels a little draggy, and then Dressrosa just literally is really long. And I think Dressrosa has a lot more going for it, but it's still like long and a little bloated maybe. Well, and this one just like totally like is compressed and is like there's really not much downtime. There's just like moving.
You know why I think that is, especially why you get that impression overall, is because there is not a flashback in it. There's no, True. It doesn't pull you out of the momentum of the plot at any point.
That's true.
No, I was kind of surprised because I remembered, specifically all the running around in the facility towards the end. I remember week to week that got very that dragged a lot. Yeah. But, I was kind of surprised just rereading it, how quickly it went on. And it's probably just because, hey, by that time I was, like all of us, we were doing the manga recaps, really long ones every week. And it was probably the first time that I had like been so locked into each chapter material wise. And whereas before I would just kind of read the chapter and that was it. And so I feel like, when I actually did marathon, it really hit me like how quick the pace was in comparison.
Since we're not talking about Dressrosa for a while, I'll give my brief say about the first 5 volumes, and that's that the pacing is fine in the first 5. I'm more worried about what happens in the following 4. But in those, it moves. It's not like Fishman Island. While reading it lagged. It's kind of like Skypiea had that moment where you're reading it and you're like, okay, come on, let's go. And even if you're marathoning it, you're like, I mean, Ed, I'm sure you agree with, I think it was volume 63 and 4 or something like that in the middle there. Or 4 and 5, 4 and 5, I think.
Yeah, 64 and 65.
Where you're just like, okay, come on, we know.
I think I said 60. I think I said last week that 65 was my least favorite one that we read for the read-through.
Punk Hazard, I think, proves that Oda still has the ability to make a tight, well-paced arc, and
in 5 volumes.
In a 5
year.
volumes. Yeah. In a year, which is what I think he was aiming for, and then Dressrosa happened, and I think that became. I think it was unwieldy, which was, I think, even a surprise to him because I think a lot of what he sets up in the first 5 volumes of Dressrosa kind of imply that it's going to be something much shorter. And we're going to, undoubtedly be talking about Rebecca and the Kiros story a little bit more before we leave Dressrosa completely. And I think, from what I read in those first 5 volumes, it's such a well-established story. It kind of, brings a tear to my eye and it does all that. But then there's 50 other chapters in between it, and it kind of destroys it. And I'm sure we'll be talking about this again. But I think Punk Hazard doesn't have that problem because it's so nice and short when Dressrosa suffers from it. And I'm hoping Oda in the future finds a way to take the good from Punk Hazard and the good from Dressrosa and combine it into a well-paced, but able to do a bigger story arc at a faster pace.
I think there's so much going on in Dressrosa that it will marathon pretty well. I do think that when you do tackle it, you may have to keep in mind that it will be a little awkward reading it, like digging through Jump to read it from chapter to chapter. But when that's finally like in print and in our hands, like will probably read a lot better.
I don't think 78 and 79 are going to be coming out in English until like 2017. So that's I think 79, because that's not even out in Japanese yet.
No, that comes out in October, I think.
So usually
I will
it's
say,
a year.
Yeah, I don't remember who, but a guy on Twitter sent us like a list of like and that's going to be really helpful.
I'll try and include that in the description so people could
get started.
Through. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. Why don't we get right into that?
Sure.
This has been the 13th and final episode of the One Piece read-through proper. The next episode we go through, again, will be in a month from now, around September 17th. It might be a little later than that. We're going to go through Dressrosa, which hopefully will be over by that point. A couple things I want to go through. I think this will be good. It'll give you guys more time, since there's going to be a lot more digging to read through all of Dressrosa in one shot. A fan was nice enough to post a list of where all the chapters are in Jump, so you could go that way. I know a lot of you don't have access to Jump, in which it's probably a much easier search, but we will be going with those. We're probably not going to be recapping it like we just did with Punk Hazard. We're probably going to go through scenes or general thoughts on major events. So you now have a month to read through the final 5 volumes and the remaining 4 volumes worth of material. And I'm really interested in how I'm going to feel about that, especially coming right off the heels of having read it for 2.5, 3 years, something like that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
It's going to be interesting.
I think ideally this would have, ended up being like a couple months after we finished it, just so you can kind of remove yourself from the material. But, with the way that it happened to time out, it will. I am anticipating some feeling of kind of a deja vu fatigue, where it was like, okay, yeah, I know what happens next. And
reading the first 5 volumes, it was so damn long ago that it felt like new material, kind of like it has going through the read through thus far. But I'm gonna probably get to a point, and that point's probably, I don't want to say when it is, because then I'd be spoiling it for people who don't want to be spoiled. But there'll be a point where I'm like, yeah, we just did this, and it's probably going to be what the anime's up to now.
I was going to say, since that's also going
on. Because now I was up to the point at the end of volume 74 and 75 where I'm like, I remember just watching this in the anime a little while ago. So yeah, it's going to happen. Looking forward to that, though. So the One Piece read-through will return then, but for now, Joey, where could people find you?
Sure, they can follow me on Twitter at Joey Weiser, where I've been posting a lot of One Piece read-through stuff, as well as images and links to my Daily Dragon Ball project, which you could follow at dailydragonball.tumblr.com. And on joeyweiser.tumblr.com, I recently announced that at SPX next month I'll be debuting a new mini-comic, Tales of Unusual Circumstance, non-annual special number 1. If that's a long enough title. And also debuting at that show is the 4th volume of Merman, so look out for that at the end of September.
You promised axolotls in that, right?
There is an axolotl inspired creature in that.
Great. And where is that taking place?
Where is SBX, yeah. So I should plug that because I think Steve and Alex will both be there as well.
I don't know about Steve since he's living in California now, but Alex almost certainly will be.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if Steve got a table or not, but and that is in Bethesda, Maryland. I think technically Rockville or something, but outside of DC. And it's
North
called the
Bethesda.
The Small Press Expo. You can go to spxpo.com to get more details about that. It's like the 3rd weekend in September, I think. And I will be there with comics in hand, and I will be ready to draw some One Piece characters in your book or whatever you'd like.
Stephen, how could people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter. My account is Translatosaurus. Just if you have any questions, ask me whatever you want to know, and I'll tell you.
And Ed, how could the good people contact us?
Well, Zach, you are Zach_Logan on Twitter. I'm Edward E. Festizio on Twitter. The podcast is at OnePiecePodcast.com, Twitter.com, YouTube.com, and Facebook.com/OnePiecePodcast, especially YouTube.com/OnePiecePodcast, where we will be releasing new episodes of the One Piece Podcast Goes to Dallas over the next few weeks and months.
Speaking of, I think the second episode should be out, according to Jose, Friday, but it might be later. I want to hold him to that. That will be covering the artwork that goes into DVDs at Funimation.
Yes. OnePiecePodcast@gmail.com is our email address. One Piece Podcast is our Skype name. OnePiecePodcast.tumblr.com for news updates and funny pictures. Subscribe on SoundCloud, subscribe on Stitcher, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, or call us on our phone number. Zach?
That phone number is 347-497-MAJI.
MAJI.
That phone number again is 347-497-6254. Call anytime.
Anytime.
With your questions, comments, and theories. Thank you all so much for listening to all 13 episodes of us not shutting up about One Piece. I mean, that's what we do.
We should have like a reflections segment on the podcast next week just about doing this.
Yeah, I'd actually be up for that. It's been a really interesting experience. I don't want to take any more time. This episode was longer than I thought. Anyway, as I said at the top of the show, if you are still reading along with us, please tell your friends. They could start from the beginning. #OPReadthrough. There's no time limit to this. These episodes will be up as long as we could keep them up. So please use this as if your friends want something to listen to after they're done reading an arc and they're like, oh my god, I want to talk about this or hear about it. I hope this is a good companion for you. Or if you're rereading the series, I hope this is a good companion for you. Or if you're too lazy to read the series but want to hear everything that happens anyway, I also hope that this is a good companion for you.
I think we managed to describe pretty much everything that happens.
Yes, in probably too much detail. Thank you all for your...
never can be too much.
That's not true. Thank you for your patience with us, and thank you for listening in. This has been a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to going through Dressrosa and future arcs. Once they're finished, maybe we could tack them on to this OP read-through title. So, for the One Piece Podcast, everyone, my name is Zach.
My name is Ed.
We'll see you next time, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
So long.